love me so much more than I could ever know. Your love is deeper than this world will ever show. And all of life's beauty shines around this moment now. The sky and the cliffs, they seem to change my life somehow. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, I will never be the same, never be the same ever again. Well, here I am waiting, Lord, my life is just for you. Please unfold all the plans that you would have me do. And if all the world's just a breath and nothing's here to stay, and all of the love we feel will save us anyway. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, I will never be the same, will never be the same ever again.
Hello and welcome, excuse my voice, to SDAQ&A. I have laryngitis and even thought up till maybe an hour ago that this show wouldn't go ahead. But here we are, and my very special guests who will do most of the talking today. I know that surprises a lot of you viewers and listeners. But yes, I will be talking less than normal. But we've got Paul Contanko here with us and Debbie Hooper. and really appreciate you guys being on the show. This really is part three. For those who want to watch the first two, we had a program called Women's Ordination Robbed Yet Again. This is part three of that, and part one was both you, Debbie, and Paul. I think Peter Mashenko, and then on part two we had Nerily Smith Dobson and Debbie. Paul, you were away on holiday, and then this is our third one. And essentially, these three programs have surrounded the not physically, not even metaphorically, just time-wise, the AUC meeting, which was the union meetings. So this is just a bit of background I'm giving. The union meetings, and there was a lot of excitement building up to those meetings. So the first interview that we had together includes a bit of that excitement. I was the one that was a little bit more pessimistic. I'd like to say realistic about what was about to happen. But there was some hope there that I know, Paul, you and Peter Mashenko had, that at the very least you'd be able to raise concerns from the floor. Anyway, leading up to the AUC meetings, I was getting lots and lots of messages because people know that essentially the straw that broke the camel's back for me with the Adventist Church was when the no vote went through in 2015, I think that was. And I just, being an older father with two gorgeous little babies, I just thought I can't put my name to that anymore. And so I took a big step. I'm not saying people have to do this, but for me personally, I took a big step and took my name off the roll and left the Adventist Church. So this is a big thing for me, this topic. And in that nearly 10 years since I left, very few people that are leaders or ordained pastors, employees of the Adventist Church, very few have publicly spoken up in support of women's ordination. You'll hear a lot of euphemistic sort of phrasing, and hey, we support women in ministry, we support women's ministries, and this, of course, is a good thing. But what a lot of these leaders are not saying is that really their hands are tied as regards to any movement forward with women's ordination becoming an option for women to take. And what I really want to get across with this show today is we're not in any way trying to criticize people, though some people will fall under a bright light that might require some scrutinizing questions. And it's okay to name some of those people, not to attack, but to challenge and ask them to reply. I'm not attacking the church, I'm challenging the church. And on this topic, I think it's the important thing I want to get across today. I don't mind if you've done the research and you've come to a decision that women's ordination is not for you, you think it's not biblical. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people who've done the research and have come up with a decision that women's ordination, in fact, is fine and should occur. This is not about the fight for and against, though some watching and you both as well may share, of course, what you believe and what you believe should happen. This at the core of what I'm trying to reveal is that for 60 to 70 years, leadership that is progressive has told people behind the scenes that things are changing and that things are at play that will bring about the change. And what we are discovering is that that nothing has actually been done. There's a lot of hope. When I interviewed James Baber the other day of Academy Apologia, he said, yeah, but hope is not a strategy. And I thought that's so true, you know. You guys talk behind the scenes, and behind the scenes, as Nerily read out in her, in the part 2 of this series, she read out her open letter, and she highlighted that people behind the scenes were giving her hope. They were saying strategies were at play. They were saying that, yes, indeed, things were going to change this time. I think in Australia, we've had 3 leadership changes. Paul, do the union leader president, is it every 4 or 5 years that they change?
5 years.
Every 5 years. So there's, you know, there's 10 years, and we're heading into the next 5 now, and already there's a feeling that it's getting kicked. The can is being kicked down the road. So we've had Munoz, we've had Terry Johnson, and now Brendan Pratt is the president. And all these guys, I speak of these 3 particularly because they, you know, I know that behind the scenes, these guys have literally said, we support women's ordination and things are at play to bring about a change. So again, this is not about what you've concluded is your position on this. This is about people who say things are changing and they're not. And I had a big chat to a guy that works at SPD. This was about a week ago, and he said he said that essentially his hands are tied. And this is a term a lot of them use. Our hands are tied. And you know
Not
what?
true.
A lot of us would
True.
appreciate that kind of honesty. But they've been telling us that there are strategies at play, which to me seem like they're not. So I've said I'm not going to talk much, but what I'm going to do now is not talk much because we chatted before the program, and I'm going to get Debbie to do a little summary, and then I'm going to hand it over to you, Paul. I want you to talk about how you felt before the AUC meeting, during the AUC meeting, and now post the AUC meeting. And just one last quick thing. Lloyd Grolleman is watching, and Lloyd fits into the category of people that I think have courage. And Lloyd has been someone that's come on the show and publicly supported women's ordination. What Lloyd doesn't seem to understand is that I'm speaking about a collective, normative kind of sheep following toe the line systematic problem. So Lloyd, if you're still watching, great that you speak up. Fantastic that Paul's going to talk today. Fantastic that I won't mention their names, but I've had 2 or 3 others. Now, this is over 500 interviews. Maybe 5 people have said publicly, I support women's ordination. That's the problem I'm talking about, Lloyd, not that you can. Lloyd has written, you don't have to be brave to support women's ordination in every church with a condescending LOL. Lloyd, what is it you're not grasping? And I replied to Lloyd, what is it about the collective I speak of that you don't understand? Most people that are church employed will not speak out publicly. Just because you are one of the good ones doesn't make it the norm. So, yeah, I don't get that. But anyway, Lloyd's a good mate, and I appreciate his comments and his honesty, and I appreciate that he is one of the bold ones. Okay, so Deb, tell us a little bit about your involvement. You've been writing some articles. Tell us a little bit about that, and welcome to October 22 here in Australia, the great disappointment day. You guys over there in the States, you're on the eve of the great disappointment. We're already here. So, Debbie, tell us about your articles. Tell us a little bit of your summary of what's going on. And then, Paul, over to you to share before AUC meeting, during, and after. Go for it.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, I want to reiterate that I appreciate people speaking up about it, individuals speaking up about it, including you, Lloyd. Why are you not making a difference for us? That's my only question, is that are you speaking at the AUC? Are you trying to talk our leaders through it or not? Or are you just saying it publicly and feeling proud of yourself, and then that's the end of the story. I like you, Paul. Lloyd. I like you too, Paul. But I guess many of us are very weary of it, and Paul's included in this because he's been involved in women's ordination for quite some time now. I think probably at least 5 years. I'll let you clarify that later. Yeah, 2021. And Paul and I first contacted, well, Paul reached out to me after I wrote an article, and then he wrote an article, and we were both speaking about the upcoming AUC constituency meeting, which had said that they had on their agenda ordination. We thought, well, maybe it's time to just get people thinking about it a little bit. So that's why I wrote my first article, then I wrote a second one just prior to the constituency meeting. And then where Paul and I have co-written an article that should come out tomorrow in the United States on Spectrum Magazine Facebook page. You'll find it there and various other places. And what we've done is attempted to make sense of what happened. So not just at the constituency meeting, but there were events that led up to the constituency meeting and then what happened at the constituency meeting that we've been trying our best to make sense of. We're trying out all of these theories, like how does this keep happening? Because what we're looking at isn't just, something that has happened once or twice. This is one chapter. AUC is simply one tiny piece of a book that is now many thousands of chapters. Well, it feels like that, not many thousands of chapters long, but seriously, since the 1940s, has been a recurring chapter over and over again, and the same things keep happening every single time that this is raised. And let me just say one thing about that. Before the 1940s, women's ordination was a thing. They were ordaining women. And around the 1940s, things changed. So we went backwards. I've got some documents that can show you that. So Paul and I are thinking, what is going on here? How come these same things are happening over and over again? We've got equality for women. We want equality for women. It's been an ongoing issue, but for some reason we have these repeated dynamics where the debate is quietened down, where it's suppressed, where people who are calling for women's ordination are called sectarian. Apparently we're not people who are mainstream, we're sectarian, and they're afraid of sectarian disunity. And various words come up over and over and over again throughout the history, and those are unity. We need unity. We need consensus. We need to make sure that we're focused on mission. But we have to think about why those words keep coming up, and are they being used as a device to actually suppress anything that is going to upset the apple cart? Are they unwilling to look at difficult situations and make decisions on difficult topics? So that's kind of where we arrived, wasn't it, Paul? Did you want to add anything to that?
No, that's a pretty good summary. Thanks, Deb.
And I actually really appreciate that Ted Wilson, and I'm 99% sure that I've just forgotten his first name, Kohler. I'm pretty sure, and I appreciate that they are very clear that they don't want women to be ordained. I appreciate that. That's not our point that I think we're discussing. What we're discussing is the leaders down below, what they do with that. And our leaders in this part of the world take that information, know full well that that information has tied their hands, and then bow to it while publicly, while privately telling us the opposite. That's what I'm upset about.
Our Australian leaders have backed away from doing something publicly about it, but there have been other unions and conferences around the world who actually have, and quite a few who have actually made a decision to stand up for this situation. And I guess the question we have to come to is are people like Brendan Pratt, who is our new AUC leader, is he intentionally trying to hurt women in ministry? Well, I would say a definite no to that, and I think you'd probably agree, Paul. But what are the dynamics, these unhealthy dynamics that we can't actually break out of, these patterns that continue over and over throughout history that cause them to back away and sideline an issue because they're basically, I think, nervous about going there?
And I wonder too, because I know Brendan Pratt in the promo comments last year of a similar topic, and I pushed and pushed, and he went through that. I support women's ministries. I've publicly supported women in ministry. I said, no. I'm saying, what are your thoughts on women's ordination? And eventually I nailed him down to saying, yes, I support women's ordination. I wonder if as he came into the position, it only dawned on him as he was a week or two coming into the presidency role, if it dawned on him that, oh, hang on a second, my hands are going to be tied. I wonder if that happened, because as I was saying at the start. And
what do you mean by that, though, Peter?
Yeah.
Hands tied.
Yeah.
Well, that's the big thing they all say to me behind.
Really?
And yeah.
How are their hands tied?
That's the big lie.
That's the terminology they say to me. And that's why when you said that earlier, Paul, I thought, oh, that's interesting. Paul doesn't think so. I don't think so at a practical level. I don't think their hands are tied at that.
No.
But their hands are tied in the sense of, and I don't want to judge them, the sense of job loss, the sense of being able to maintain that position in the hierarchy. If they engage with the things they could do to bring about the change, and this is what's the most disappointing thing, they could do stuff that would bring about the change, but they don't. And when they don't, they say it's because my hands are tied. I've had 3 people at SPD and AUC level in the last month use those exact words to me. Now, and one of them, when pushed, said, well, I'd lose my job. But what, I guess, and I didn't finish this, but right at the start, I said, what gave me a lot of positive reinforcement and excitement, because I mentioned, I left on this topic, was people writing to me. I forgot to finish this, and saying to me, you'll see, there's a lot of things happening that are going to be voted. Women's ordination is going to be voted in. And I'm going to get Paul to explain a bit why was there excitement, because I think 6 of the 9 conferences said they're happy to support a vote, and the vote counting had been done by the people writing to me, and they'd said it's very positive. You wait and see. You're going to be eating your hat. And I thought, okay, well, that's exciting. I want to see that happen, but I don't think it will. So perhaps, Paul, you take over now and share.
Well, can I just say first, if that's okay, when we're talking about women's ordination, if we can just sort of define what that is, we just mean equality for women. So in whatever way, shape or form that ends up being, that we use women's ordination simply as a catch-all description of for equality. But I think what we'll find, and this is what Paul will point out, is that they steered the topic completely away from women's ordination, and in a way that hijacked the whole possibility of it happening. So yeah, I'll let you go on now, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah. My advice to you, Peter, is ignore anybody who won't go on the record. Their comments are totally self-serving. If they're not prepared to go on the record, don't repeat what they say.
I literally, with the last one that was talking to me, put my hand up and I said, mate, stop with the word salad. You come on the show.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's when he said, my hands are tied. And I said, well, stop talking about it. I'm not interested in what you think.
Or come on the show and say why their hands are tied.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as if there's not a union or conference in the world that hasn't ordained women, and that we would be the first ones. I don't know. I've never heard this hands are tied argument, in all honesty.
Really?
You know, I've been involved with this for
What
5 years.
What about the powers that be? See, one thing I've learned from discussing with, because people were saying, who's coming on the show? What pastor have you got that's willing to put his hand up? And so in private, I mentioned it was you. Well, we'd already done an interview publicly.
Yeah, no problem for my name to be.
And they said, oh, that's surprising because Paul's quite a conservative Adventist, and
Okay.
theologically speaking. So that was the consensus of these leadership guys. They weren't criticizing. They were thinking, what a fine man you are. But they were thinking that your theology just leaned more to a more conservative style rather than a more Fordite style, which I don't mind at all. I don't care at all. I don't mind at all. But from my experience, the progressive Adventists, the ones that are leaning to a more forward-based theology, new theology, the kind that unravels Adventism, they are very familiar with the terms hands tied, and the powers that be told me not to speak on the show. If it's true and you are coming from a more Ron Kelly perspective, more Doug Batchelor perspective, which I totally respect. I totally have no problem. But if you were, you'd be less likely to hear that terminology. So it's more the circles you are in, and I assure you that I've heard those terms so many times for 40 years.
Yeah, I really
don't know why it should be
it.
a surprise. I guess the main reason is that people associate patriarchal ideas with conservatism. But I'm not saying that you are, Paul, but why shouldn't it be just as important to conservative people, this issue?
Well, just on that, I had a pastor on the show the other week, and he said, I feel, I don't support women's ordination. I feel that I can't publicly speak on it. And I said, well, that's a shame, because I think that you should have an equal voice saying you don't agree with it.
Exactly, yeah. The last thing we want to do is shutting anybody down, no matter what their views.
So even if you haven't heard that term, Paul, and again, everyone, I've lost my voice. So
you're doing pretty good, Peter.
I'm doing pretty good. But even if you're surprised with that terminology, my hands are tied, the reality is they're not acting. They're not doing it. If they can, they're not. But they're telling us they are and that they can. But they're not.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
So over to you, Paul.
Okay. Got to watch what I say, that I don't say things the wrong way or whatever.
Why is that? Because your hands are tied?
No, because I can run up the mouth.
And what would the powers that be do?
No, look, I've had no threats implied or anything about the article in Spectrum, which was fairly hard hitting against leadership. Had one or two feedback that might have been not entirely accurate in some parts, and maybe misrepresenting. Okay, fair enough. But nobody has said, "Hey, you better watch it" or anything like that. Not implied, not openly or anything like that. So yeah, my views are well known on this topic. So yeah, not a big surprise for people. So yeah, no, I was sitting with my president at the constituency meeting. We were just chatting about this and that, and whatever, as we've done before. So I haven't had anything that you shouldn't be doing this. I don't know if they know us on SDAQ&A. I'm not sure, but yeah.
They won't tell you anyway, Paul, just saying. They won't tell you what they know.
I've got good relationships with the leadership. I mean,
so do
the reason I'm coming on here, and the reason I wrote the article for Spectrum, I was on the executive, Victorian Conference executive, for about 6.5, 7 years. I can't remember exactly. As a pastor on the executive, you've got a dual relationship with the president, because the president is your boss. Okay, president's the president. You are the pastor in the conference. He's your boss, and fair enough. No problem at all. I respect that. I've been a president myself, so no problem. But on the executive, the president is accountable to the executive. So as a pastor, the president is accountable to myself and the other executive members. But outside of the executive, the president is my boss. So you got this dual relationship. And look, with the president, I'll name him Graham Christian, great bloke, great president. We sometimes disagreed on things, sometimes strongly. Sometimes strongly I disagreed with some issues. Not every time. Most of the time it was consensus, but there were times where I spoke up, and I never got any feeling of, hey, you better watch yourself, or you can't do this. And so because of that experience with my president, Graham Christian, I feel quite fine to speak out. I don't feel I'm going to be threatened with my job or anything. So because of good relationship with leadership, that gives me a foundation to speak out on things, on this particular issue. So I'm sure if they wanted to say something negative, they would. And it'll be done in a good way, in a constructive way. So I don't have any fear of leadership or anything like that. So anyway, in terms of this hands tied, as I say, I've never heard that before, because the reality is it's the GC that is overreaching. The unions have always had the authority to ordain. It's nothing new. Even after the vote in San Antonio, and the vote was not, should we ordain women? The vote was, will we allow divisions to decide if they want to ordain or not?
True.
Okay, so that was the only vote. Women's ordination was not up for vote. It was simply, can divisions decide themselves? And even after when that vote failed, Ted Wilson was on the record to say nothing has changed. Okay, the vote changed absolutely nothing. It was reverted to the status quo. What was the status quo? Unions ordain. Okay, unions don't need the authority of the division to ordain. They don't need the authority of the GC to ordain. They have the authority. So when people say their hands are tied, either they don't know what they're talking about, and they don't even know their own authority if they're at the union level, or they're flat out lying, because they do have the authority. Other unions have ordained. The GC has never challenged their authority to do that. They've disagreed with it.
What about the compliance committees, though, Paul?
Yeah, well,
that came into policy, and they ended up with their stage 1, where they were literally warning. Then it was going to be
yes, that's right.
And the only thing that stopped next year of that turning into sharp teeth biting was COVID.
But basically, those compliance committees, they're pretty much paper tigers, but they're there to intimidate. Okay, so sometimes you can intimidate without
our AUC
having
leaders being intimidated.
Look, it's not for me to, I don't want to judge motives about people. I don't like it when people do it about me. So I don't like to do it about others as well, unless they tell me what their motivation is. But all I can say is their hands are not tied. They are choosing the path that they have chosen. Okay, and I wish they would just admit it and just say, we're not going to do anything because we don't want to, because it's a choice. They're not doing it because they have to. They're doing it because they want to. And
they've made repeated
up to it.
Exactly.
They've made repeated comments that they don't want to go against the world church. So in that respect, when Ted Wilson said nothing has changed, I wonder whether he meant that the unions could still ordain, or whether he actually meant that we will stay with the status quo of what had been happening since
that's right.
1940, where women were unable to be
Yeah.
ordained. So
That's what he's meaning.
yeah, that's my
Yeah.
question. I actually think that they are concerned, and you're right. Like, I don't know what their real motivation is. I'm sure even if they tried to tell me, maybe they wouldn't even know. You know what I mean? Like, we often
I think they know.
try and say it in the best possible way, but in actual fact, maybe that's not actually our deepest motivation. So I think they are scared, but maybe we'll just disagree. I don't know, but I actually don't think. I think they're afraid of going against the global church.
Look, that's definitely part of it, because sometimes it's referenced in that, but to me, just because one thing, sort of after going on the Reformation tour and thinking about these things, Adventists of all people should be wary of centralized power. We say, we bag the Catholics because of the Pope, yet some people believe that the General Conference in session is the voice of God. So we don't have an infallible Pope, but we've got an infallible session. I'm not so sure about that. So, why as Adventists are we, bowing down at central authority when they are in overreach and they are enforcing injustice? Should we be really following these people in that area? In our area, in Australia, it's total injustice. 12% of the workforce, of the paid workforce, are women, and yet we still can't bring ourselves to vote equality for them. And it's often trumpeted, oh, we've got the highest ratio of women in the world. Fantastic. Wow, that's something to cheer. 12%. I understand that's more than double NAD. That just makes it worse, because those that have less women have treated them equally. And we have more women and we're treating them badly. So, when they trumpet that statistic, all they're doing is exposing just how much injustice they are prepared to put up with by having such a larger proportion not being treated equally. So, I think the first thing we need to make sure we understand is what they're doing is a choice. They have chosen the path of inequality. They've chosen the path of injustice. Their hands are not tied. I got a little bit of flack about my comment that what was lacking was courage, but I'm doubling down on that. That is the real issue. They don't have courage to stand up and say, I support women's ordination. At the constituency meeting, they didn't even bother with virtue signalling on the topic. They were just silent. Even Brendan Pratt, who I know is personally wanting to see just a women ordained without all this other stuff. But even and look, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, who's viewing and who was there, but he didn't say his position. He didn't say clearly, I support women ordination. I support equality. It was always, let's have a conversation. Let's draw more people in. But from my recollection, and maybe I wasn't there all the time, but from my recollection, I never heard him say, I'm in favor of women's ordination and I'm going to do my best to make it happen. I never heard that. Or even, I believe equality of women in ministry, and I'm going to do what I can for it. And look, that's what's missing in Australia. Leaders prepared to say, I support this. Yes. I'm going to promote this. This is where I stand. You can disagree. People can disagree with me. No problem. No, I'm not here to shut anybody down. But we need leaders to publicly state their position. And then I believe people respect that.
So, so what you're saying there is, I guess, a hope, and one I 100% agree with. With my interview with James, I would now say, okay, what's the strategy? What's going on? How do we make it happen? How do we get Brendan to speak up? You know,
So they
why aren't
did.
they speaking up? You don't have to
Exactly.
you don't have to judge their motives, but why aren't they speaking up?
Exactly.
Let me say it. Why are their hands tied?
Yes, they're not
If
tied.
you already know a fair bit about what came out about the AUC, you may still feel hope. And that is because they've decided that they will be having more discussions until about 2027, when they will have a special constituency meeting. But as this interview goes on, I hope we reveal to you that what they'll be discussing has nothing to do, or very little to do, with women's ordination, and that the topic itself has largely kind of dropped off the back end of all of these discussions. So that it's almost like a deflection when it comes to ordination. Sure, they're discussing ordination. They're not looking specifically at women's ordination, which happens to be the elephant in the room. So if you have hope, awesome, but I'm sorry.
There needs to be it's strategy time now.
Yeah, just a bit of clarification there. We have no idea what will be on the agenda in 2027, and we also have no idea if there'll actually be a special constituency in 2027. The constituency meeting, unfortunately, voted no motions. Brendan is in either a fortunate or an unfortunate position of having absolutely no mandate for anything. There was no actions taken, so he cannot be accountable for anything because nothing was voted.
No.
So 2027 can come and go with nothing.
Yeah.
And even if 2027 happens, it might, who knows what it will be. It could be just straight up ordained women or not.
So
it could be this, let's
won't.
have a look at the whole picture of ordination. We have no idea, and that's why I'm probably getting a bit ahead of myself. The women, when Brendan had lunch with them, they said, we want to vote now. We're tired of promises. We're tired of the never, never. We're tired of the can getting kicked down the road. We're here. Let's have a vote right now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and I want to come back
read
to
Deb
that.
and I article about what happened.
Yeah,
next.
No, we're going to talk about it today. I want to hear more of that discussion, because when I heard about that, that meeting, I reached out to about 5 commissioned female pastors that I know, and they also are dying to talk about it, but won't speak publicly about it. So what is the strategy? And I want to come to the strategy.
It looks like self-promotion.
And I want to come to more about you chatting to the wide variety of people that were there after. But Paul, talk us through you personally leading up. You had a bit of hope. Initially that hope was dashed, but you had a bit of a hope about being able to speak emotion from the floor. My understanding, tell me if I'm wrong, is that it went from it's going to be voted on, that's what I was told, to it's going to be discussed, to it's going to be allowed to have a motion from the floor, to not even motions on the floor. Talk me through those 4 scenarios.
Okay, yeah, I'll just clarify that. Actually, I just had it before, a couple of days ago. I just had to do a quick through the video. That was the last time. And I landed on a part where I said, it's only going to happen if there's a rebellion from the floor. That'll be the only way that it will happen. Unfortunately, that rebellion didn't happen. Okay, but yeah, that was my take before, because it was a stitch up before.
Yeah.
So
I'm not claiming
a stitch up.
I'm not claiming any prophetic skill, but I said that's what's going to happen. And Peter Mashenko said, "Oh, don't be negative," and you said, "Oh no, it'll happen." So I'm very interested to see now what you think about that.
Yeah. Look, this is the brief overview of what happened beforehand. The ball really started rolling in 2021 when the Victorian Conference Executive Committee just voted a very, very simple motion, and that was simply, that the Australian Union Conference approve ordinations to the gospel ministry without regard to gender for candidates as recommended by the conferences. Pretty simple. You don't need a degree in theology. to understand what that's all about. It was just a simple motion. Let's treat them the same. The other thing that was put in there was as recommended by the conferences. Now, it's actually that was actually redundant because that's the process anyway. Okay, the union just can't go around and say, "Oh, we'll ordain you, you, and you." They can't. What they do is the conferences, because of course the pastors work in the conferences. So the conferences are the ones who make a recommendation to the union. So the conferences evaluate the candidates. I've been on the executive. So, I've got the reports and stuff. And then the executive makes a recommendation to the union to ordain the people. So the clause as recommended by the conferences was to make it clear that if the motion was passed to the union, that it doesn't mean that automatically conferences must ordain women.
No.
Not at all. Choice was given.
Yeah.
Okay. We understood that not every conference is on board. But hey, how about not stopping those that are on board with women's ordination? Have your conversations, no problem. It was brought up afterwards. The Pacific Union conference, all those liberals, those California liberals, and all of that. They voted for women's ordination in the union. 10 years later, only 4 of the 7 conferences ordain women. Okay, that's unity. Okay, that's unity where you can say, look, we're not ready, and we might not ever be ready. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Nobody's here to force any conference to do anything.
Yeah.
So that Victoria's motion was really an enabling motion, okay, to enable the conferences if they wanted to. And that would have, I pointed out, that will get rid of it at the union level. The union can have clear air after that. Because if anyone whinges to the union, just say, look, talk to your conference. They're the ones who decide to ordain women or not. Okay, so it would have been a nice, easy motion and enable it. Because, this is what I keep hearing. The other conferences, well, they're not ready, but they don't want to stop any other conferences that wants to ordain. Yeah, right. But nobody stepped up. Not one conference took that on board. Only Victoria. And then there was 3 other motions that were put forward by 3 other conferences that started talking about, what's ordination? Should we be ordaining? Yeah. Of course, it was perfectly fine to ordain men and to continue to ordain men. Let's not get silly about this. But when all of a sudden, when Victoria proposes a motion for women, we've got to look into ordination because, as we know, the church has never looked into the subject of ordination before, have they? No. So they didn't read the TOSC report clearly because they kept referring to sacramental. That ordination is sacramental, from those, those bad Catholics. So why are we doing that?
Yeah.
But they failed to read the consensus statement of the TOSC. Okay, which simply says, while ordination contributes to church order, it neither conveys special qualities to the person or ordained, nor introduces a kingly hierarchy within the faith community. The biblical examples of ordination include the giving of charge, the laying of hands, fasting and prayer, and committing those set apart to the grace of God. If they had read that, their whole argument would have fallen in a heap. I don't know if they read that, but yeah.
I know about it for sure. And was that 1995?
I'm not sure when
2014, 13 or 14.
Because they had a big study in the early 90s as well.
Yeah,
which came to the same conclusions.
Yeah,
this is why when Brendan talks about consensus, it's irrelevant. Ellen White set up a great union structure that, like you said, Paul, you get to decide the conferences if you want to or you don't. It's because she knew consensus is impossible to reach, A, and B, she didn't want kingly global power.
Exactly.
B, she was a genius in setting up these unions to decide for themselves on the ground. So don't say, we're waiting to receive consensus. You're never going to get it, but allow the people in the conferences that you lead, let them find consensus.
Exactly. Yeah, there was no pushing anybody. You know, the motion was clear. It was redundant to say as recommended by the conferences, but it was just to give reassurance that, you know, the union's not going to go marauding around Australia ordaining women. Okay. You know, the conferences will decide if they want to or
Yeah.
not. As I say,
That's
Pacific Union, 10 years later, 3 of the 7 are still not ordaining.
Yeah.
And the union president said, we all get along. That's unity, not this
Maybe they're
conformity and
concerned.
compliance committees, you know, to
I would
try and
imagine.
intimidate.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Paul.
Yeah, that's okay.
Maybe they're concerned that the conference presidents are concerned that they're going to start receiving pressure to ordain in their state or territory
The
as well.
reality is they won't
Yeah,
receive
yeah.
pressure. The reality is they won't.
You don't think?
They'll get pressure from both sides. But the thing is,
No,
that's why they're paid. That's why they're leaders. They're called leaders. You got to lead when you're a leader. You don't just sit back and say, oh, okay, what do we do?
And consensus
No, you
doesn't
gotta
mean,
lead.
like, yeah, a good leader goes, okay, 75% North New South Wales members, leaders want women's ordination. A good leader goes, okay, well, you know, we're going to help facilitate that, or not, based on
Yeah, but it's up to them.
Yeah.
You know, that's up to them. So, you know, I'm not here to push anybody what to do.
No.
Victoria's clearly ready to ordain women. The minute it's
so what happened to that?
We'll do it.
Yeah, what happened? What happened then after Victoria did that?
Okay, after Victoria passed that motion, it was circulated to all the conferences for support, because to have a special constituency meeting, you have to have 1/3 of the conferences, so needed 2 more. I think 1/3 or more than 1/3, I can't remember. But anyway, needed to be other conferences to sign up for it to be compulsorily on a constituency meeting, or in the case then, that was for, you know, to put it on the agenda, and then also, you know, failing that, because there's a constituency meeting coming up, and failing that for a special constituency meeting. So it was circulated at all the conferences, and only then did, you know, start these motions questioning, whether we should ordain or not, and you know, let's look into that. And then, you know, the documents are publicly available. I can see them. You know, better not say nonsense. Okay, so I didn't say it. Okay. So anyway, they said, look, there's not enough time to put that on the agenda. So then looking at a special constituency meeting after 2021, and then there was a bit of, you know, toing and froing there, and then some advice came through. I hope you won't mind me saying his name. It was good advice. Glenn Townend from the division. He said, look, if you have a special constituency meeting, it'll be, you know, focus will all be on that. The sides will rally, and then, you know, if it fails, it's a spectacular failure. If you wait until a regular constituency meeting, there'll be the GC session would have happened, put it on the agenda, hopefully it'll fly under the radar. Okay. So it failed to get on the agenda in 2021, then, you know, said, look, don't try for a special constituency meeting, wait for the one in 2025. So, you know, that was sort of more or less agreed of the women's ordination supporters, that, okay, that could be some good advice. And of course, 2025 comes. What are we told? Gee, we're not ready. We need to talk more about this. We'll have a special constituency meeting. You know, so you see the
in 2027
the road pattern.
And
yeah, exactly. And probably 2027 will come. Oh, gee, you know, we've got so much on our plates, and yeah, let's wait till the next regular constituency meeting. And that's what
now
the
is not the
ministers have
time.
put up with.
Yeah.
There's
So
the can down the road.
So when I chatted to you and you said, well, you're going to at least raise it from the floor, tell me how you knew it had been knocked off the vote. not going to be open for discussion, but you saw hope in being able to raise it from the floor. Tell me what led up to you going in that day to raise the motion,
Yep.
and what happened next, and how you
Okay.
felt.
Yep, rightio. So what happened was, even leading up to that, because some of these machinations are important about what happened, and that's what Debbie and I talk about in our article, as you've read. The union voted for 2 extra days to the constituency meeting. So instead of 3 days, it was 5 days for a constituency meeting, and 2 days were to be dedicated solely to the issue of ordination. Okay. Now, this was before they actually had any proposals. So they voted the 2 extra days purely for the ordination issue. Nothing else. Nothing else. It was for. So that sort of naturally gave a bit of hope, because you're gathering, I think it was a total of 180 delegates or something in the end. You're housing them in a pretty nice hotel, feeding them. We've got a nice hall and everything. It was easily upwards of $100,000 plus to put on the extra 2 days. Absolutely, that's a conservative estimate. So this was obviously pretty high profile, that they wanted to do something. Okay, then and look, I wasn't involved, so I don't know the exact timing, but anyway, very shortly before the constituency meeting, and I think it was a matter of weeks before the constituency meeting, they finally came to the realization that the proposal, of not ordaining pastors, it wasn't ready. Now, I would contend it would, something like that would never be ready, because of the inherent contradictions in it and the impracticalness of it. But anyway, finally they realized that it's not going to be a goer. So, but the problem is, with 4 conferences requesting it to be on the agenda, it has to be on the agenda. The union cannot not put on the agenda, because it's in the Constitution. Okay, so the Constitution says if 1/3 request, it must go on the agenda, either 1/3 or more than 1/3. So I don't know which one it is, but anyway, you get the drift. So the union could not take it off the agenda. The only way they could do it is if conferences withdrew their motions. Okay, that started the whole process, and so the union sent requests to all 4 conferences, 4 of the that had proposed some motions, and they said, look, please withdraw your motions. We're not ready. We want to downgrade it to a discussion. To that effect. I don't know. I didn't see the email, but that's what they wanted to do. They want motions withdrawn so that it didn't have to go to a vote. It could be downgraded to a discussion, because remember, they'd already allocated 2 days to it. You can't just call up the hotel, and everyone's made their flight arrangements and hotel. You can't just say, oh, sorry, 2 days. Yeah, we sort of made a mistake on that one. So it had to go ahead in some form, because that's where the expectation. So they asked the conferences, please withdraw your motions. And North New South Wales and South New South Wales did that. Now the motion that was supposed to have been brought more reflected their point of view than the other 2 conferences. So they withdrew, but the other 2, Victoria and West Australia, did not withdraw their motions. They wanted it still to go ahead to a vote. Okay, but it was now down to 2 out of 9, which is less than a third. So on the basis of 2 conferences withdrawing their motion, the union then had an executive committee meeting to formally downgrade the ordination issue from a vote to a discussion item.
And there we have.
So see the lengths. Let their actions speak for themselves.
Yes,
the lengths that they went to make sure that women or ordination would not be voted on, despite the fact they had voted an extra 2 days at a lot of cost.
They knew already that it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolute waste of money. They knew well and truly knew behind closed doors that this was just to placate and make people think something was happening.
Yeah,
It was not.
it was really, there were no adults in the room, I say,
Yeah.
to allow something which was obvious to many from the start was not a practical thing to just stop pastoral ordination. Ordination is the cornerstone of Adventist ministry in the SDA Church worldwide.
Yeah.
You just can't. And also their arguments about, if we don't ordain pastors, elders are going to step up and be leaders. And the laity will embrace the priesthood of all believers. It was just a fantasy. Whoever wrote these things, they haven't been in a local church for who knows how long. Elders already are very much active in the church. The fact that laity may not be as involved as we would like has nothing to do with pastors being ordained. It was just, and they brought no evidence. They brought absolutely no evidence that if we stopped ordaining pastors, any of these things would take place. And of course, the reason is there is no evidence.
Yeah, so if I may just add in there that there seemed to be an issue with processing it as well, because you were saying to me that instead of putting together a committee that was able to really make sense of that topic, the AUC kind of took a hands-off approach, and in a way that wasn't their usual process. They placed the responsibility for understanding the topic and coming up with a good statement on people who had much less time. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Did I get that right, Paul?
Yeah, look, I wasn't involved. That's what I heard, that the union really took our hands off and said to the 4 conferences, if you want it, you guys work it out. Whereas, Constitution is clear. If something comes from the conferences, the union's got to make it happen, whether they like it or not.
And use experts.
But anyway, as I say, I don't know. That's what I heard. There was very hands-off approach, and that
I think you'll find that there is I think that you'll find that there is quite a good summary of what happened, including some of this actually on the website, and in our article I've actually got a link to that, which would be worth people going in and having a look at the events as they occurred.
So anyway, as I say, it was a stitch up beforehand. It had been down, they requested conferences to withdraw, to did, so they had a basis to downgrade it from a vote to just a discussion item. It was a stitch up. They knew their processes pretty well. So that's why I keep saying, what they are doing to keep women down is a choice. It is not hands tied. They are deliberately choosing the course that they are chosen. Just those things that I've described show you, it is a choice.
That's the truth.
Exactly. So if someone tries his hands tied, you can tell them, well, I'll let you decide, but you know the truth now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we even went in knowing that is the truth, and that my hands are tied is an excuse.
Yes.
But nevertheless, it's an effective thing to say to people behind the scenes. Nick DeC writes, guys, don't be so naive. My hands are tied is political talk for buying more time. Thanks, Nick DeC, but we're not naive. We know that. And what we're trying to do is say, let's just stop the duplicit talk.
Exactly.
Let's stop these guys saying one thing to us behind the scenes, another publicly. And even more than just observing that, the point of this conversation is to try and come up with a strategy for people watching to get these guys off this tight what do you call it there, Nick?
Tightrope wire.
We want them off that. If for example, Paul, they are worried about losing their jobs, their hands are tied for personal reasons, not for
it's not tied because they can't do it.
I think they're just falling. I think they're falling into the same patterns, and if you look at the history of this, you see the same language come up over and over again.
You're right,
from the 1940s, unity, We've got, now is not the time. You don't know how many times I read that in one of those documents. Like, it just kept happening again and again. And they, like I said before, I don't think that they're bad people at all, but they're so used to this system of government and the approach that it takes, and they think, we'll finally get the consensus that we all need, which we know is nonsense. They're not going to get the consensus. And what is the bar that they're setting? It's so airy-fairy. We wouldn't even know what that is.
To me now, as Paul said, it's out in the open now. We know that what you guys do next, talking to you leaders, what you do next is going to reveal so much about you.
Exactly.
So be careful what you say now. Jane points, they're trying to create the illusion that it's not top-down power structure. Well said, Jane. Thank you.
That's right. I mean, because the power is in the constituents. There's no ifs or buts.
Supposedly.
No,
how about someone like me? Well, not even me, because I write sort of globally, I guess. But what about somebody who's a church member who doesn't write for a living? How are they going to be heard?
Okay.
No.
What can do? I went to something about some issue about involving with government policy and that, and what they said was, and I was going to say this a bit later, email or call and ask them, what is your view? Nail them down. What is your view? Do you support women's ordination? Like, I'm not even going to go about equality or anything like that, because that could easily allow them to do the sort of nonsense they did last time of, let's look at ordination, which will take constitution changes, policy changes, where to just say, let's ordain women, nothing has to change. It can go ahead the next day. Whereas if they go this track of abolishing ordination, they've got to, each conference has to change their constitution, unions have to change their constitution, policies have to be looked at it, changed, and will the general conference recognize it? If you're proposing something that can never happen, administrative almost, you've got to say, are you really serious about equality? If you reject a simple way and propose a complex way, which can almost never happen, are you really in favor of equality? And so the advice was, send emails, make phone calls, asking, do you support women ordination? Okay. Will you say it publicly? Because that's what I think the missing link is. Leaders publicly saying it.
I've been inviting people on the show for 5 years, and they have not. Like I said, you, maybe 4 others, Lloyd. The other 3 weren't really. One was talking to women. So I'm saying this has been done. People have been called to write petitions. Surveys have been done. Send emails. Nerily, when did we work out, Debbie, that Nerily wrote that first open letter? Was it 2017, 19, something?
2017, I think it was.
That's right.
6, 7, 8 years of people and women doing something. Now, something piqued my interest. I'm going to have to go and have a cough in a second and a gargle of some betadine. A good friend recommended gargle. I think it's betadine. So I'm going to go and do that. But something started brewing during the AUC meeting. I started getting messages from these commissioned female pastors. I reached out to a few. Several wrote to me as well, unprompted. It sounded like info was coming through that a sit down happened with Brendan Pratt and these women. And by the way, I want to stress again, I am not and never have attacked the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm challenging it. Ellen White literally called out for leaders and students to agitate. She said it 3 times in one sentence, back to back. This is about challenging.
Exactly.
And so if this meeting did occur and the women the female pastors did have a chat with him. Debbie, did you hear about this? Have you had any follow-up? Paul, can you then add your thoughts to it? I will be
Sure.
back. I will be back very soon.
Well, I'll let you.
I can hear you just here.
Oh, okay.
Oh no. I'll let you go on with it, Paul, because you were actually at that particular meeting. So tell us about that meeting.
Okay. So anyway, as I mentioned, because when I was on the program, I knew some of these things had happened. So that's why I described it as a stitch up from the beginning. And of course, a stitch up is going to be pretty hard. And I said the only way anything is going to happen is a rebellion from the floor. I do, for sure, even a constituency meeting is in the hands of the constituents. So the union, they wanted it downgraded. Well, they voted to downgrade it to a discussion item. However, if a procedural motion is brought to the floor to allow motions on the topic, and then that procedural motion is carried, then that opens the way for a motion, any sort of motion, okay, about ordination, whether it was what they presented. So the constituency meeting is actually in the hands of the constituents.
Yeah. So you're saying then that by the time the constituency meeting came around, everybody's hopes was riding on somebody standing up and making a motion to bring it to a vote.
Yeah,
is that correct?
That was the only. Well, look, that was the only.
That was the only way it could
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, to override what the executive had voted. Okay,
Yes.
The constituents could still do it. So anyway, and Brendan knew about that I was going to move a procedural motion.
You'd been very open and transparent about what
that's
you
right.
had
I
done.
like Brendan. He's a great guy, and I know his heart is in it. I wish he was a little more public about his convictions, because I think it makes a big difference when leaders share their convictions rather than just talk vaguely about let's have discussions about this and that and bring people along, have a group hug and sing Kumbaya. Sometimes it just needs leaders to stand up and say, look, this is the way I think we need to go, and then promote it. So anyway, so Brendan knew I was going to bring a procedural motion. We discussed it. Obviously, he wasn't overly happy, but that's okay.
You'd had a good relationship. Conversation.
Yeah, in email and in person. He's a good bloke.
So he was very aware of what your plans were.
Oh, absolutely. And look, I want to be fair to Brendan. He was handed a really bum steer, because he was not the president who was involved in the preparation for the constituency meeting. He wasn't, the main driver or anything like that. And all of a sudden, even before he was appointed president, he's got people like me hassling him, and he was in a difficult position. Okay, he was in a difficult position. I do have sympathy for him and his position, because he was not responsible for the total stuff up that it turned out to be, of adding extra days and then, oh gee, we can't do anything.
He was complicit. No, not that part of it. No, not at all.
No. Yep. So anyway, he had a judgment that as the new president, he wanted to have a broader conversation, because
Can you tell us first about the meeting that you had with the other female women in ministry?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yep, sure. So anyway, Brendan's the new president, and he's got to deal with all of this stuff that, the executives voted one way, the proposal was clearly not ready or whatever to be bought. So he agreed to meet with the women pastors. To his credit, as the women in ministry, the women said, no union president ever sat down and talked to them over lunch. So kudos to him to do that.
It's good. Yeah.
Okay, but the women made it very clear, we want to vote this meeting. And the reason was what I've said before. all the time delay, kicking the can down the road. No, we can't do it now. It's too late. Oh, the special meeting, not a good idea. And now, when there was 2 extra days added and they don't want to add a vote, they don't want to have a vote. Well, of course, the women are thinking, what's going on? And Brendan sort of put his vision of, let's have an inclusive conversation, a broader conversation. He correctly pointed out 5 of the 9 conferences had not even engaged on the topic. But the women's response was, we keep hearing these promises. What you're saying now is what we've heard before from different people. And the other thing is, you talk about inclusiveness, yet you're expecting us to stay unequal, and inferior. Okay. They said, we're happy for discussions. If people want to discuss about the nature of ordination and should we ordain, fine. But let's do it where we are equal rather than when we are unequal. And so that's what they said.
So powerful to me. And
Exactly.
I think that's really the crux of it, isn't it?
Exactly.
Is that instead, in a way, the whole thing bypassed women altogether when they could have simply scooped them up and brought them along with what happened.
Yeah, the discussion was still, so they were very reasonable, despite the history that they had endured. They were very reasonable with their request. They said, "No, we want it now." That's what we've come together for. So can you let me in?
Yeah, you've had lots of conversations with women in ministry, and as Peter explained, they're often very reluctant to actually speak to me, for instance, who would like to. I mean, I'm not saying they're entirely not going to, because I have spoken to women in ministry about this before, but many of them are very reluctant to make their strongest opinions known. So tell me, give us a little insight. What are on a whole, what's the general feeling out there among women in ministry?
Yeah, look, I can only speak for some of the ones in Victoria, the ones that sort of I know well and that. And look, all they're asking is to be treated the same. They're not, they're not wild, bra-burning feminists or whatever. They just want to be treated the same. They're not asking to be treated better. They're not asking for quotas or, in high positions, or just simply, hey, look, just treat us the same, as the blokes, as the men. We don't want to tear the men down to our level. We want to be just equal with them. They're all very reasonable, dedicated people, just like male pastors are. They are too. And so they were a little bit hurt by all this talk. Oh, we've got to be inclusive and we've got to be together. And they're in the,
it's pretty ironic.
Yeah, that's it. They're
pretty
in the
ironic.
card.
What's some of the fallout though? Like emotionally, is that this is often carried on as a more of an academic sort of discussion about them. But what is the fallout in terms of how its impact on them as individuals and other people's responses to them as well?
Yeah. One thing that they mentioned was after the vote in San Antonio, there was a spike in sort of like hate, for want of a better word, hate mail, where people were really, slamming it. It's almost as if Antonio, the vote there, gave permission for people to be just really nasty to women in ministry. That was quite a shock to me. Of course, as a bloke, I wasn't aware of it. Also, not being on anti-social media, I was even more not aware of it. So, but that's what they said. There was a real spike. And they said any time that it sort of, comes into the fore or whatever, you get these, these really nasty people making negative and just terrible comments about it. So,
do these come from their own congregations? Like,
no, just online and that. Mainly online.
Okay. Okay. How do they find their congregations respond to them? Are they very carefully placed? Like, I've noticed there's a lot of women in ministry who are in chaplaincy roles, either in aged care or schools and things like that. But I just wonder.
Yeah. Look, in Victoria, I can only speak for Victoria. Pastors, when churches are needing a pastor or whatever, the conference talks with them, and they give, if appropriate or whatever, they'll name women candidates as well. So no church is forced to have any woman as a pastor. So any church that has a woman as a pastor has been comfortable with it. Now, that doesn't mean in their congregation there are people who are against women's ordination and who are sometimes mean to them. That still happens. And look, they know that that's just part of the territory, that not everyone's going to agree and not everyone's going to be happy. So, they've accepted that. But yeah, even leading up to this, I was surprised. There was almost a feeling of exhaustion that we've been here so many times. So there was a mixture of hope, but also of resignation that it won't happen because of past experiences. That some were even just sick of the whole thing, because why on earth does it take so long? What is the problem? To just treat us equally. What is so yeah. So that was
this
sort
kind of speaks to
impact.
mental health, doesn't it? Like mental health for
affects them,
female pastors. And I think I was looking at some research, which I can't recall off the top of my head, that female pastors actually have greater, a higher, like tendencies towards that because of in those denominations that are very patriarchal. So, and in what you were saying then was that what came out of San Antonio was validating discrimination.
Yes.
So those who were sexist in any way, let's just say, or believing in patriarchy, even if they sort of sincerely believe in patriarchy.
Women's ordination, that they support women's ordination, because we don't know.
Oh no! I'm not talking about generally speaking, but I'm just saying.
But it was the women's ordination.
People who had that. So anyway, tell me what happened then after. So the women in ministry basically said, "Thank you very much, but we feel like you're asking us to accept a position of inequality and inferiority again, which
that's it.
It's the broken commitments of previous leaders."
Yeah, exactly.
And they said, "We're happy to be involved in any future discussions about ordination.
Yeah, that's right.
But how about we start from a level playing field? How
exactly.
about
that was it.
But Pratt didn't agree to that, or what happened at the end of that?
He can't, he couldn't agree or disagree. He was there to listen. He obviously wanted to put his point of view, but he was there to listen. And he didn't make any commitments, and he couldn't, because that depends on the executive or whatever. But anyway, one commitment that he did make is one of the women said, "Look, typically on these committees, there's a token female, or one female," and they said, "Look, we need more women with seats at the table, not a majority or anything like that, but just if you had a group of women on a committee and one bloke, it's going to be different to." If there's more blokes on the committee, and that's what they were saying. Look, if you've only got one token woman, that's not going to get heard so much. But if you've got a few at the table, and he agreed with that. So for any future discussions, he made no commitments or anything, because he couldn't. But anyway, that evening, 10 blokes got together. The union president and the conference president, all blokes. To discuss what they would. Well, I can't say for sure what was discussed there, but I'm inferring it was about, okay, what do we do at this constituency meeting? So 10 blokes get together, no women. So I don't know what happened. All I know is the next morning. Yep.
Do you think it would have been appropriate for Brendan to pull in some women into that meeting, like if it was about women's ordination? Do you think that could have happened, like realistically?
If it was, I think it would have been good. Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, so 10 blokes got together, and if you want to know what that echoes of, read the Spectrum article tomorrow about how we've seen this movie before.
Yes, we have.
So the next morning, Brendan brings a motion to a procedural motion to have no motions on ordination.
Wow.
Okay, so no, he preempted my motion with his own. So
because you'd been very upfront about what
Yeah.
you were planning to do. The
Yes.
women had as well been very upfront. Did you
Yes, that's
feel
right.
betrayed in any way by that? Like, I think I would have personally felt quite
It's like a
betrayed.
slap in the face.
No, look,
Yeah.
I think, look, if I was in his shoes, I probably would have done the same. No, really, if you're
Really?
the leader, it's better if you take the initiative, for sure. For sure.
Well, it
And
was
look,
one way of handling it, but you gave them the advantage. You're
Yes,
trying
that's
to be
true.
transparent. The women are trying to be transparent. Like, there's an appeal to please be real with us. And then the next day, like, I think that's actually a betrayal. But then, like, maybe it's not. It's just how I
Well, what
see
the
it.
betrayal, what I see as the betrayal, that's what we've headed our article, is the fact that, and whether it was him or whether it was with the presidents, that they didn't allow a vote. It would have been uncomfortable. It might have got, I don't think it would have got out of hand. Once you get to the union constituency meeting level, they choose their delegates pretty carefully.
Yes.
Conference ones can be a little more rough and ready, but at the union, they're pretty genteel affairs. And it would have been good if he had said, look, we've got 2 days allocated. We can spend some time on a motion. That would have been, in my opinion, a nice thing to do. Okay, but instead,
it wouldn't have hurt.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been okay. It would have been uncomfortable. It would have been unpredictable. Hey, that's what constituency meetings are all about.
And maybe you don't have to control everything.
Exactly. They don't have to be stage managed.
Why the need to control? Why?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, he moved. And look, to be fair, it was the mirror image of my motion. My procedural motion would have been to allow motions. His motion was to not allow motions. So they're two sides of the same coin.
You're being very fair, Paul.
It's two sides of the same coin. So anyway, most of the people who spoke against the motion. Only a few spoke for it. Only one president spoke against it, meaning.
So just remind people what. Okay, yes. Remind people
the motion
what against and for is.
Yeah, the procedural motion was to not allow any motions on ordination. Okay, and it would just be, we discuss, a talk fest. And so if people voted yes, that meant no motions. If they voted no, that meant they wanted motions about ordination. So anyway, most speakers spoke against it. We want to have a vote on ordination. One president spoke against it. So he was the only one.
Did you say no president spoke against it?
No, one did. One did.
I didn't hear you say one. I thought you said no.
Oh, yeah, no, one did. Yeah,
right,
one spoke
one did,
against it.
Yes. And do you mind saying who that was? Because I think
may as well. That was Steve Goods, from Western Australia. Who was retiring, and he spoke against it. And of course, Western Australia also refused to withdraw their motion. But he gave a very gracious speech. He actually apologised that we didn't get women's ordination. He apologised that he perhaps didn't push enough or whatever for it. So he was quite gracious. And two presidents spoke for the motion that let's not have any discussion.
Can I guess who they were? Because you've not told me this. I just want to say that Paul has not told me.
I'm not going to say yes or no.
I don't know. I just have a feeling it could have had something to do with who put the other two motions in.
I'm not saying anything. So, but anyway, we'll let the guilty parties go anonymous. We'll
Hands
praise
are
the
tied.
brave ones. We'll praise
What
the
was
good
that,
ones.
Pete?
I
and
said
let
Paul's
the-
hands are tied.
Yes,
No, they're
yes.
not died. I'm choosing. I'm choosing to do this.
But they're making a
So
choice
anyway,
too. They're making a choice too.
but yeah, but the thing is, what is the annoying part? I'm always hearing, oh, we've got these new crop of presidents, and they really want to see women ordained and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, none of them spoke up, of course. So, yeah, so I don't know what went on with that meeting that the 10 of them did, but only one retiring president. And look, to be fair, Steve is well-known supporter of women's ordination. It's not as if he
he's
was
public
hiding
about
his
it.
colours. He
Yeah.
is well known for his both publicly in support of it. But yeah, none of the others spoke to allow motions. So in the end, the vote went, and it was 60-40, so 60 to block all motions. So because of that, I could not move my motion because
So that was actually just a fairly
yeah. Well,
small.
look, if 10%
you
had
pointed
changed
this
their
out.
vote,
Yeah, 10%, literally.
yeah, it would have gone the other way.
Yeah.
But anyway, look.
And why do you think that
end,
was? Why do you think that there was so much? If more people spoke against that procedural motion than for, why did it come? Why was it 64 and 40 against?
Look, I don't know. I mean, there was 180 people voting. Each one had their own reasons. So I don't really want to.
Can I make a suggestion?
Motives. Oh, you can do what you like, but yeah, I'm not.
Okay.
I don't like judging motives.
No, however, all I can do as someone who reports on this is to find out what happened in the lead up and during the meetings. And I know for a fact that Brendan reiterated many times about unity, and perhaps even just before this vote, did he make that appeal again?
Yeah, many times.
Right. So to be fair to the new AUC president, what are people going to do? If we're going to have a discussion, awesome. Maybe that's enough to give up this procedural vote. That's my thinking, and based on psychology.
Yeah,
and I'm only basing that on psychology.
Yeah, and that could be part
not
of
on
the
anyone's intentions or motivations for anything.
Yeah, that was and that could be part of it. That people wanted to give him a go because he said, "Hey, I want to have more inclusive discussions and blah blah blah." So yeah, maybe that appealed to people. But anyway,
and how did you feel though when your glimmer of hope was snuffed out?
Yeah, pretty disappointed to be completely honest.
Did you say anything? Did you put your hands up and go, "What?
No.
Is this happening?"
No. No, I mean, look, in the end, the constituents had voted, and the constituents are the ones in charge. So, don't want to have sour grapes.
But didn't you say beforehand that there's no way that in our first interview, there's no way they could stop you from making a move from the floor because you're one of the constituents?
Yes, that's right. But
and it's all about the constituents.
Yes.
He was vetoed.
If the constituents had the constituents voted no motions. And if the constituents voted it, that's really the end, because the constituents are the ones in charge. They recognised at least one thing. They recognised that it didn't matter what the union said. If the constituency voted a procedural motion, it overrode what the executive wanted. So at least they
recognised. Who raised that being a possibility, though?
Oh, absolutely. The constituents are in charge of the constituency meeting. They can
what was your question,
they can vote
Peter?
whatever procedural meeting.
Who raised the motion that motions couldn't be made from the floor?
Brendan.
Yeah. So isn't he one of the executive?
I don't know if he was on the previous one because he wasn't the president.
He's the chair. He's the chair of the constituency meeting. So I guess.
Yes.
So he had his ear to the ground, got the feel.
Well, he knew.
Oh, he knew. I told him.
Peter, what you might have missed is that there was a meeting beforehand where the women in ministry were very open about the fact that they still wanted to raise a procedural motion, and in person, but also in an email before the meetings, Paul had been very open and transparent with
But aren't
Brendan.
they part of the constituency?
Who's that?
The women that are there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the ones who were there, they were delegates.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is,
well, they would have
the
voted.
constituency is a
Yeah.
little bit of a democratic thing where
Yes.
you may or may not get to have your freedom to speak your voice from
Yes.
the floor.
No,
I
people
can
did.
understand when people speak from the floor and what they've said is voted down. What I can't understand is that a vote can come into play where the constituency is not allowed to speak from the floor. You see what I'm saying?
No. They were allowed to speak to the motion, and if the motion
to the
was
topic.
defeated, then they could bring other motions. But if the constituents voted no motions, that's it, because the constituents have
you
voted
see the
that.
irony of what I'm saying, that the whole point is the constituency is supposed to be allowed to raise motions that can be then discussed, voted against, voted for. But to say that you're not even allowed to have a discussion, you're vetoing the talk.
Yeah, but the thing is, the constituents voted for it. Yeah, they themselves
we want to
voted,
vote.
We don't want motions.
We want to vote that we're not allowed to have a say.
No. No.
Yes.
This is where it gets a bit archaic. But the constituents voted, we don't want any motions.
Sounds like a Monty Python episode.
Got to be respected. But yeah, it would have been nice if Brendan had listened to the women in ministry and allowed a vote without resorting to a procedural motion to block all motions. But in the end, it was carried. So the constituents sided with him or with that motion.
He had
so
no
it was
say.
fair.
He essentially had no say in that.
So
who?
Brendan.
Well, he
just represented, this is what the constituency that I'm representing.
That's right. No, he could say that. It wasn't him who shut it down. The constituents did.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. He can say, I didn't do anything. I allowed a vote, and the constituents said,
well,
we don't want any motions. So it wasn't him who did it.
Yeah.
It was the constituents.
He can't say he didn't do anything. Sorry if I may correct you, because he put forward the procedural motion and he spoke to that procedural motion.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
he should take that at least that responsibility.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. On that part, yes.
You
it would have been nice for him to to listen to the women. Realize all they had gone through with all the broken promises. It would have been nice for him to have said, okay, I'll allow a vote. But instead he brought a procedural motion to gag all motions.
I mean,
that was a bit disappointing.
The reality is, if he'd allowed it, it still would have been voted down anyway. So you
don't know.
Probably.
You don't know. Don't know.
If it went 60-40.
Don't know. No. That was to allow no motions.
That indicates a sense of we don't want this to be talked about. So those who voted against it are not wanting it to be discussed. So then there were that if it was voted, that those 60% would have done the same thing to it.
But
may I say I don't think that is exactly a reflection of what happened, because I do believe that there were some who in that 60% who did want to vote for it. However, they conceded to the fact that this is Brendan's this is my opinion only, my speculation only, that they conceded to the fact that Brendan is a new president and the fact that Brendan appealed for unity, appealed
I get it
for
now.
more discussion.
Future discussion. Yeah,
so
that's
he
right.
he can't walk away and say, hey, they voted for it. Sorry, nothing to see here. He actually influenced them.
Yes,
I believe so. Yes.
Yes,
I
he
believe
could
so.
have, if he had said nothing and just come on the meeting and said, okay, look, I've had some, discussions and, these unfairnesses have happened. We've got 2 days. Why don't we have a discussion? Why don't we have a vote? That would have given a totally different context.
Yeah, and
Saying,
imagine
hey, I want to have more talks and blah, blah, blah.
imagine
So,
if he had done that and
set
it
the
had voted
context.
through.
Would have been
Yeah.
wonderful.
Wouldn't that
At
have
least
been?
there
Look,
would have been a chance.
But see, the
But can-
other thing is, the people didn't know that the vote that I wanted to put for, I suppose I read the article, did. I didn't have a chance to say, hey, this is only an enabling motion. Your conference can do whatever you like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
haven't had discussions yet.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Take
Yeah.
10 years like Pacific Union. Take longer than 10 years if you want to.
Yeah.
You know, didn't get a chance to
Yes.
say, hey, this is just something to let those who are ready.
Yeah.
And if
You're not going to be
ready,
forced.
no problem.
Exactly.
You can go at your own pace. Nobody's forcing anything. So anyway, so it was passed. So that meant no motions could be had. And so that was,
Can I ask a question, Paul?
Unfortunately, you can always ask.
I asked lots of questions. Okay, so you said that on the evening before there had been 10 presidents, including Brendan, who met to have a discussion. We don't exactly know what that was about, but
That's
obviously
right, yeah.
on the heels of that, there was this motion, this procedural motion.
That's it.
So you actually worked out that this is actually reminiscent of something that has happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Are you happy to go there now?
Oh, yeah, okay. I was going to save it, let them read the Spectrum article. We get more.
Oh, were you? Okay, let's not.
Don't talk him down, Debbie.
Going
there now.
Yeah, everybody needs to read the Spectrum article and it will all make sense.
That's it. What happened
was, as well as hearing it here.
Okay.
Peter.
20 years ago, the more things change, the more things stay the same. 20 years ago, before the leading up to the 2005 General Conference session in St. Louis, General Conference President Jan Paulsen polled 13 division presidents. No prizes for guessing what sex they were. Okay. Polled 13 men. Should we bring it up? Move forward with ordination for women. 8 voted no, so it didn't go ahead. Again, 13 blokes deciding about women ordination 20 years ago. Fast forward 20 years.
Same thing.
10 blokes
so
get
it didn't
together.
end up on the agenda.
Let's not do women's ordination. The more things change, the more things stay the same.
Yeah. And I know of women who I've spoken to in the last month or two who are in their 70s and remember in their prime being offered the false hope. We're talking about it finally. But they still have hope. They were criticizing me for raising these topics.
But look, sometimes you just got to keep going.
Hope springs eternal.
Don't grow weary in doing good at the right time.
I don't think I have hope anymore either, but that won't stop me from talking about it.
I must admit, I don't have a whole lot of hope.
Are you disillusioned? I'm disillusioned. That's why I don't have hope. I'm just disillusioned in the whole governance.
I've never been more disillusioned with the leadership that I have been now. I'm just glad I'm in a local church. Local churches are great. You can do what you like. Local church really is the best place.
People are nice. Most people are nice.
You want to have women doing stuff, you do it. It's the best place to be. But bitterly disillusioned with the machinations, how determined they were not to have a vote. All the things that led up to it, all the kicking the can down the road.
The barrier.
Yeah. They could do something that they choose not to. In my view, they're complicit now in the injustice.
The sad thing is,
observers, they're complicit.
The sad thing is you hit your 50s and each of us is 50 plus, I'm guessing. And
60 plus.
and you start going, oh well, I'll just stay. I'll enjoy my home church. nothing I can do about it. You know, it's very difficult. And the young people are full of hope because these guys speak to them, you know, and they look hip and cool and they say the right things and they're good public speakers and they inspire them with women in ministry talks. And so the young people fall for it. By the time they wake up to it, they're too old to do anything about it. They've got kids. And then by the time they really wake up and the delusion kicks in, oh, well.
No,
So that's what I want to talk about now.
Yeah, I want to talk about what we can do.
That's exactly right. And just before we go there, just a couple of comments from the viewers. Rick writes, I got so tired. He's left the church now. And Rick, I want you to come on the show and share that story. I got so tired of the lack of transparency, the constant doublespeak, the masks people wore while at church, but then did different in private. That kind of religion is a waste of time. Jude Young wrote, Jesus didn't treat women like that. Maybe the higher-ups should read the Bible correctly. Kevin Brown writes, and hey, Kevin, is the AUC session considered confidential? Like,
No.
why can't
you get all the documents online?
So why can't you say the names
online?
Exactly.
I'm not attacking them. I'm giving them an opportunity to say, hey, come on the show. I'd love Brendan to come on the program and share his side of it. His side of it. I would love, I wonder if we'll ever get a commissioned female pastor, because that's, to me, when it'll change. That's the only thing. When they start going, we're sick of this.
Look, for the women in ministry, I'll just say the women in ministry, they feel bad that if they say something, it looks like they're just pushing their own barrow.
And if this was 2 years in, I'd go, no, yeah, maybe you are, but not 40, 60, 70, 80 years of this. And we've identified today, this is an ongoing, clever, streamlined, professional shutdown. You women, if you think that this is some kind of, it is going to change soon, I won't speak up because it's going to happen in God's time. You are being absolutely wool pulled down over your eyes.
No, and they don't. What they think.
I don't even know if they necessarily realize. I want to give them that, and I want to actually be kind enough to give them that. But they're so enmeshed in this culture that they fall into these patterns over and over again. They believe they're doing the right thing, but they're not. And because we can see the same things repeated over and over throughout history, this is, this is what they're doing. And may I just say that you were saying earlier, Peter, about hoping somebody would come on, and please do come on and correct if we've got this wrong. Explain it if we've got this wrong. But there is a dissonance between what is officially reported in the Australasian record, and what actually happened, which was a much narrower and more closed process.
Interesting. They did that.
So officially,
they did that after Glacier View too.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, that's all I wanted to just quickly put in there. Sorry, Peter.
But Jane Krause writes, she's agreeing with Jude Young, that they will always try and gaslight you into believing you're the one that's wrong. So a lot of these women won't speak up because, maybe I'm in the wrong.
Yeah.
No, I've never heard that.
I agree. Peter.
Yeah, I've never put it that way.
Paul, when we were talking, the other day, and you said to me, and you said today, like when Peter said, Deb, can you lead out a little bit because, of my throat? And you go, oh, yeah, I'll be under Deb's thumb again, which was a joke.
Who said that?
Paul.
I did. But there's a history behind that.
There's a history because we've had lots of conversations, and Peter, I said to him, like we've put this article together, so we've had some backwards and forwards with exactly what we're going to put in it and what we're not. And I have stood up for myself. I was not like this 10, 15 years ago. I always thought I was wrong, whereas now I'm not saying I'm right. I don't know if I'm right,
and I
but
think,
I'm no longer willing to be silent. That's the difference.
and Paul, it's not so much about worrying if they'll be wrong or that they've been gaslit to think they're wrong. Every woman I've spoken to that won't speak up, because I drill down on it a bit more, they say invariably the word shame come. They don't want to be shamed.
Yeah.
And that implies you'll only be shamed if you say something wrong.
Yes.
So whether you've picked up on that or not,
That is
it's
huge.
huge there.
Yeah.
And Andy writes, kicking the cans seems to be working for them, so they can see they are for women in ministry
has.
without voting to prove their real opinion of women's ordination.
Yeah,
And
as I say, I just wish leaders would speak up and publicly say, "This is where I stand." You read a lot, and there was one article I remember, but I can't remember the conference or anything like that. It was either in Spectrum or Adventist Today, and a president was elected at a conference. He said to them, "Okay, you want to elect me, fine, but you've got to know I'm a supporter of women's ordination, and I'm going to be pushing for it." And they elected him. And that's what we're lacking in Australia. I can't think of one conference president who's publicly said, "This is where I stand." That's what leaders, a bit old-fashioned. A leader is someone who says, "I think this is the way something needs to change or be done," and then you sell it.
Yeah, that's right. And you vote it out if it doesn't work, so you'll at least you've got.
And look, if people disagree or whatever, okay, but
where does that weakness come from? Where does that weakness come from?
Okay. My theory,
it's profound.
Look, to me, the new guy in Victoria, Darren Croft. When I was in the executive, his church board actually wrote a letter to the executive about, "Hey, when are you going to do something about women's ordination?" I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but his church board voted a statement at the executive, and Darren was the pastor, and now he's the conference president. So I'm hoping he will at least come out and say something, and make a stand. But look, the thing is, the system and the institution self-selects people who are not going to rock the boat. That's really, and that's any institution, okay? That's any corporate, any company. The only time they're going to get someone who rocks the boat is when they're in a desperate situation. Then they'll either hire a woman or a maverick, okay? That's the only time, that they will do something radical. I mean, you see, no, probably not the best example, but Robert Falkenberg was a disruptor. And unfortunately, how it ended probably has put them off from having disruptors, and sticking more with the tried and true. And look, I'm not criticizing them, because I was one of them. Okay, I was a president of Mongolia, so I was one of those self-selected, not rocking the boat sort of people as well.
Did you rock the boat, Paul?
Well, I can't say too much, Deb. The thing is, when you're in Mongolia, man, do what you like over there too, because you're in an isolated place, and so
we're quite close to
a bit
China,
more
may I
freedom
say,
compared to other positions as president. Used to tell people Mongolia wasn't the end of the earth, but you could see it from there. So,
and that's why China's got
they will tend to select a safe pair of hands. I'm not saying that as a criticism, okay, because I was one of them, okay? So no one can say, "Oh, yeah, sour grapes," because you were never a president. Yeah, I was. And they're looking for a safe pair of hands, someone who's going to be reliable. And that's not, they're not sort of the rock the boat and, sort of people. And as I say, I want to stress, that's for any institution that's been around for any amount of time. Okay, you'll see it again. It's only when they're in a desperate situation, their profits have gone through the roof, through the floor, or there's scandals or whatever, that they'll bring somebody in who's going to shake the place up. But besides that, it'll be a safe pair of hands. And that's my theory anyway about how we get the leaders that we get. As I say, I was one of them, so it's not sour grapes.
I mean, the three of us have been in a position where we've had a time where we just let a lot of stuff slide, perhaps not even realizing that we
Yeah,
were.
sure.
I saw myself as someone that spoke up all the time, and every time I did a gig, there'd be something I'd say here and there that I felt was needing to be said, you know. So, and I'm guessing that Paul and Debbie, you've both, you know, you've not been silent, but for some reason, the more you step back and see the system at play, you realize that you were just a mosquito on an elephant's butt. And something has to happen to make a change. Otherwise, we're going to continue being as ineffective as the three of us were always anyway. So here we are. What are some things that can be done that are more than just, I wish it was different,
exactly.
I hope it changes? What are some strategies that you can actually do? Not tell people. What can you do, Paul? What can you do, Debbie? What can I do, Pete? That things that actually going to make a change. I was asked this about 6 years ago on one of the women's ordination groups that had over 8,000 people in it. And they kept pushing me. Well, what would you do then? What would you do then? You know? So I listed 6 points or something. This is what if you want to bring about change in 1 year, this is what you do. They kicked me out of the group. Because I, you know, but I guarantee I shared some ideas that I think it was in Norway in the 70s. Women were like, we don't like what's going on with whatever the government was doing with various child rearing kind of funding. I can't remember the details, but within a year, because they implemented some of the things I suggested, you know, essentially it's not going to happen until someone takes legal action or until women strike. Now, that sounds harsh, men as well, whoever cares about this, until you go, okay, then, well, you're not going to get my money. And when I come to church, I'm going to sit in the baby crying room. I'm not going to go into your church there, and or I'm not going to go at all until it changes. But honestly, it's got to happen. Something's got to happen one way or the other. And 8 years ago, I suggested a couple of those things, and they kicked me out of the group. And I said, why? I wrote to some of the admin, why have you kicked me out? You know, you asked me and asked me and asked me. And I said, well, these are just some thoughts that I've seen happen. And they said, oh, it was the way you said it. And they gave me advice. They said, you need to say at the start, hey, in my humble opinion, here's some things that you might like to try. And then the main admin lady wrote to me and said, and always end your comments with, said with love in my heart. So every time so when they accepted me back in 2 years later, every time I write, hey, in my humble opinion, guys, loved what you just said, and this is really good, and maybe you could consider this. And I say this only, I might be wrong, but with love in my heart. Oh, thank you for being much more palatable. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You've just watered
And I
yourself
said the same
down
thing.
in the process.
Yeah, and that's what
Yeah.
everyone does. We're beyond that. We're after a Sister Parks moment.
Paul,
Yeah.
will you be our Sister Parks? You are.
Okay. Just following a little bit. These are freewheeling conversations here. Not 5 minutes to fill in. Whenever I'm saying something controversial from the pulpit, I always say, I'd like to suggest this. Rather than saying, this is it. And just invite people to consider something, you know. If I'm going to say something a little bit controversial or whatever, just preface it. I'd just like to suggest this. So maybe I'll try it rather than my humble opinion. But anyway, in terms of what we can do, look, as the saying goes, the world is run by those who show up. Show up. Show up at the president. Make an appointment with your president. Ask them 2 questions. Do you support women's ordination? No, not women in ministry, not equality, women's ordination. Because equality, you can end up with all of this nonsense, okay? That'll be equality, you know, at the end of the millennium. You know, the 24 elders are still discussing it in the Book of Revelation. And so would you publicly state it, that you support women's ordination? Okay. Look, presidents, they listen to people. Okay. And the right wing are very effective. Okay. We might, you know, complain about the right wing and what they do and the pressure they apply, they show up. They show up. People on the more progressive side tend to whine but not show up. Guess whose agenda gets put in? Okay, the ones who show up. So I would encourage people, make an appointment with your president. They're open people. They're not going to say, not going to talk to you, you're a constituent, and talk to them. If you've got any personal stories about women in ministry, who you benefited from their ministry or whatever, or people that you know, I know that there was some powerful, if there was a motion, if motions were allowed, there was going to be some powerful testimonies of people in leadership whose daughters wanted to be pastors. And these leaders found themselves hesitating to encourage their daughters in pastoral ministry because they knew what goes on. And they wanted change. And they were prepared to speak publicly at the constituency meeting. These sort of things would have been powerful, but the constituents never got to hear it. All they got to hear is, let's all go together and sing Kumbaya. So don't talk to the presidents about these sort of things. Make an appointment, send an email. Always say making an appointment, but be brief and to the point. Don't give them 90 points about what you think they should be doing. Just keep it focused on the issue of women's ordination. Give them a reason to have courage. Okay, and what will help them have courage is knowing that they're not alone. That they're not sticking their necks out. The surveys show the people are supportive. This is the frustrating part. It should be the easiest sell for leaders because the leaders are behind the members. The members are far ahead. Even the statistics that their own surveys showed strong support for women's ordination. Then there was also a group that was neutral. And that was used to get, the neutrals, who knows what they want to do. So speak to presidents, make appointments with them, send them emails, and always be polite and speak nicely to them. And that's what's effective. When I went to that thing, the person said, be relentlessly reasonable. Okay.
Yes.
Be relentlessly reasonable when you go and talk to.
There's got to be a numbers game component, though, doesn't there? Like you can have one person relentlessly reasonable for 10, 20 years, as they have been for the last 60 years. But now you need a landslide of reasonable people bugging
make
in.
appointments, or if you're far away, send an email and just ask those questions. Do you support women's ordination? Okay, will you please speak publicly about it? Because the majority's behind
it. Do you think people haven't been doing that? Like I know there was a avalanche after Neroli sent her 2017 open letter of women saying, hey, we are sick of it. And the big suggestion I had on my show was exactly what you said, write to them. And they did. There was like this outpouring of, what's going on, guys? What's going on, guys? Terry Johnson contacted me and said, mate, what's happening? What's going on? You need to come to my office. I said, come to mine, Coorongong Takeaway, anytime, you let me know. And he did. He came up and we chatted for 2.5 hours. Still nothing happened. Nothing changed. There's got to be a relentless, reasonable weight of numbers
the
doing
conference
it.
presence.
But when the church has had that, it still made no difference. Nick D. C. wrote, genuine question, where are all the women pushing for ordination? 2 men, 1 woman. Where are the outraged women? It's a good point. Where are they? Where are you?
Look.
And I actually believe, Peter, that a little bit of fear struck their hearts after Paul and I both wrote I'm not saying it was because of anything in particular that we said, but everybody went, right, now's another chance. And we gained a little bit of momentum after our Spectrum articles and then the petition that Peter put together, and people were signing the petition. The conference presidents received emails. Some of those were difficult for them to read.
Some pretty terrible emails.
Well, I wouldn't even call them terrible, maybe, but they were definitely not sort of as civil as they could have been.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah. So is it because of
that
that they all freaked out and started putting the brakes on? Like, I wonder whether when there are more people speaking about it, whether they actually, and maybe we have to break through that ceiling of let's keep speaking about it, not stop and keep going. Because yes, they're going to put the brakes on at the beginning, but maybe we need to see this as a 2-year game, and maybe our goal could be 2027. By then, we've created a campaign, we've got people systematized and organized to go and see their conference presidents. We're making our voice heard.
Well, can I give you both a challenge? And I'll include Peter Mashenko in this because he's been writing a lot at Facebook, but haven't been able to access it. So I even wrote to him and said, hey, can you come on now and just share some of your thoughts? He can't, but he's sent me a couple of screenshots of what he'd like me to say. So I'll do that in a moment. But can I give Paul, Debbie, and Peter Mashenko a challenge? This is not going to happen until somebody gets together and coordinates it. You can't just say to people like Martin Luther King, there were several Sister Rosa Parks. There were people kind of interested, ready. There were Pauls, there were Debbies, there were Peter Mashenko's. They were ready in the wings. And when the time came and the moment was there, that's when they jumped and took action because they were coordinated. I've heard 2 to 3 years before that happened.
I don't think
and until you can't just sit. And to me, this is my gut feeling with everything that Adventists say about women's ordination. You're all talked, and you can't be more than just talk until you're coordinated. You mentioned the more conservative guys; they're brilliant at being.
That's it.
I've sat in on so many committees when I used to do gigs. I would often sing for the conservative churches. I loved it, and I'd just be sitting there having a hot cup of tea, chamomile, of course. And there'd be the head elder. I was billeted at his place, and they'd be meeting with a lawyer and someone else, and they're planning what they're going to do about this, and let's do that, and let's ensure that I won't mention the TV show, but there was a big thing, and they were coordinated, networked, and they'd onto it. There's no progressive layperson leader that's willing to say, let's do something about it. There's none. So my challenge, Paul, Debbie, Peter Mashenko, maybe you three could be the people that get coordinated. You can be reasonable, kind. All the three of you are amazing like that. You're positive, you're articulate, you're brave. You don't even have to be public about it, but there's something has to happen. In my humble opinion, Renee, my daughter, turns 13 tomorrow. I left because, I've said this a billion times, holding her, watching the no vote. I can't put my name to this anymore. She was like 2 or 3 something. She's 13. People were telling me then, only a couple of years, it'll be in next time, blah, 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 blah. And I said, no, she's likely to be 30 before anything.
Definitely not.
And I'm starting to think with the kind of action I've just seen at the recent AUC, someone has to get coordinated or it's all just talk. And honestly, I'm going to get to a point with the, not you two, but with you guys, speaking collectively, it's all just fluff. It's all just talk. It's all like, you don't really want change. If you really want to change, you would do something about it, not just talk. Now, you guys, particularly Paul, have made a massive step. I just can't. I've had so many people write to me in the last days admiring your willingness to be the first person to come on the show in 5 years to talk in depth about what you think are the problems. And I just admire that so much. So thank you.
Me too.
Really appreciate
thank
it.
you.
And that's, it's just not seen. Lloyd will be watching and saying, "Oh, I do. Yeah, of course you do, Lloyd, and you're one of them as well. Thank you for
Where
your
was he at the
bravery."
AUC constituency?
Well, he mightn't have been a delegate.
No, I know, but how vocal has he been in terms of trying to make something happen?
And look, if I
He loves his own church and whatever. Anyway, that's a little takeaway. That's my challenge to the three of you.
Yeah.
Paul, if you just add some things, and I'm going to read out some things.
I want to say, the person who said, "Where are the women?" Look, I want to reiterate. I've also talked to the women, and I'm a little bit nervous that it is turning into victim blaming, that they're not speaking up. Let's be careful about that. These are women who they want equality. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. But they feel, women who speak out, they're just pushing their own barrel, this and that, and so they actually appreciate blokes who will speak up. No savior complex or anything like that, but just genuinely speak up because they feel strongly about this issue. They know this is total injustice what's going on, that they've got no doubts about being wrong, that they are wrong or whatever. No, they know that this is a right and a just cause, but they just feel that it's just not a good look for them, looking like they're pushing their own barrow. And that's what I've heard consistently and over time and over different women. So that's their voices on why. I will give you one suggestion, Peter, that I think probably would come on a woman in ministry. I don't want to say on air and put pressure, but I'll let you know about her. I think would come on. But look, there is, I still believe, got to talk to, this is actually a crucial time because more or less people are expecting something in 2 years' time. But the problem is, what will happen in 2 years' time? We saw what was going to be presented. I better not say because we're supposed to be polite. The proposal that was going to be presented was not going to do anything. Wasn't going to do anything for lay people, wasn't going to do anything for the church, and it wasn't going to do anything for elders, and it certainly wasn't going to do anything for women in ministry. So we've got to push for, with presidents, women's ordination, or else it'll get hijacked. And I was also criticised for using the word hijacked, but anyway, I'm still going to say it anyway. Because it was just another view that was presented, that there was nothing that inherent.
Because you can't have an opinion, that's why.
No, because they thought that they were presenting another view and it wasn't hijacking, but adding to the conversation. So this is an important time because what happens in 2 years will reflect on the input. Now, I can also say that there was a recent meeting where there was some of the leaders, and it went all day talking about this issue that has never happened before. Okay,
post AUC,
that there was a meeting, and one whole day was dedicated to this topic about how do we move the discussion forward on ordination? So
with AUC leaders or conference leaders or
both. And it lasted a whole day. So there are some, there is some hopeful signs, but the reason why I'm really pushing about speaking to presidents about ordination only is because, look, 4 conferences put something forward. 3 of them, only one of them put something forward straight up and down vote, like has happened all around the world for unions that have done it. Just a simple motion. They didn't go through all this, let's reinvent the wheel, let's ignore TOSC, we can do better. And so they were at least engaged. There was 5 conferences that weren't engaged, which means, for whatever reason, we don't know, they didn't get engaged. But if you're one of those 5, you're presented with an option of, probably going to cop some flack if you go women's ordination. The right wing are loud. They're small, but they're loud. Or somebody presents a motion, hey, why don't we study this topic some more? And why don't we do this way? Which way are you going to lean if you're a conference president who's avoided it so far? You probably going to take the easy option of let's discuss it some more. Oh, let's talk about the priesthood of all believers and blah, 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 and avoid the issue completely, but look like we're doing something. Okay. So that's why I say people should talk about ordination only, because that's the simple way. If Victoria's motion was passed, the next day a conference could have voted a woman to be ordained. Okay. Whereas any other way, as I say, it'll be at the end of the millennium and they'll still be talking about it, how to implement it, so-called equality. So, that's my take.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think all I would say is that has been happening, and it's not made any difference.
Look, things are different. Brendan is committed to getting the conferences together and to do something. Now, he hasn't come out publicly that he would like women's ordination, but at least he has come out and he is taking a leadership role in this, and that hasn't happened before. Okay.
It has happened before. I've heard what you've just said there.
Sure, because I don't know.
Just challenging
no
you that as I watch the Munoz leadership, exactly what you said was being said. As I watch Terry Johnson, exact the same. Not you, but people saying the same thing. Oh, it is changing though, Pete. These guys are getting together. They're having meetings. They're doing stuff. The climate has changed. I'm just saying it hasn't changed. And Brendan, who I like also, and Terry, who I get on with like a house on fire, and Munoz I didn't know because he was a bit more private about his sort of thoughts and political work. I'm born and raised with these guys. I was 5th generation Adventist. I'm an observer. I'm the kind of guy that just sits and watches, and I notice loops and patterns. I'm a pattern recognition guy, and every time this topic comes up,
now is not the time.
They say what you just said. They've said what you just said. There's this endless hope that is never strategized.
Look,
and I'm not meaning to be sounding forceful. But
you can say what you like.
But but the reality is, I say to people, and have done since 2015. Well, why the endless hope? I don't even want an answer now. I don't even want to ask that. I'm just going to observe that I've heard exactly what you have said, the exact same of hope. Oh, Ayrton Cole, a new guy. Boy, it's going to bring some changes. Let's give him some time. There's no time's done. The line is in the sand. You guys need to act if you want it to happen.
Union.
I
don't worry about the GC.
I don't care anymore.
But look, just on this point about the past presidents, I don't know your sources, but I'll just say this. For George Munoz, he was completely open that he was not going to go against the General Conference. We had him at a pastors' meeting.
That's why I said I don't know much
he was on the record as saying we've got to work as a team. We go as a world church. We're talking behind the scenes and blah blah blah. But he made it clear that was his position. And he was true to his word. He stamped down anything to do with women's ordination in this union. Okay, so he was definitely not known. In regards to Terry, I heard the exact opposite of you. That he took a very much hands-off approach. Now, obviously I don't know, but I certainly never heard that he was gung-ho and really
personal. So this is what I'm talking about. Not their gung-ho behavior. That has been absent from all three.
He didn't have that.
All of them have been not gung-ho. What I'm saying is that all of them had said, my personal belief is I would like to see women's ordination.
Yeah, and George Munoz did say that.
As they've said that to people publicly, privately, they have said other things euphemistically. And people have gone, there's hope. And people have said what you just said then. Hey, the climate has changed now. because of my information I know from George Munoz behind the scene, and yes, he's doing it differently publicly, and because Terry I know wants, he's got kids of his own, he doesn't want to raise them in a situation like that. There's this sense of it's going to be okay, and all I'm saying is it's not going to be okay until someone strategizes and literally does something about it. It's endless
I
talk.
agree we do have to do something, but I also think this is a crucial time because more or less, even though nothing was voted, because of what happened, I do believe Brendan is committed to advancing it. Now, which direction it goes is very much also dependent on the conference presidents. Brendan only has one vote at the table. Okay, he's got one vote out of 10. Okay, I believe him and I trust him. Where I have doubts is because we're relying on the same conference presidents who were in charge before the AUC meeting. And what happened?
Talking to them then? What's the point of talking to them? I mean, you're encouraging people to go to them, make appointments, have chats, sit down. What's the point if it's all down to them not wanting to do it anyway?
Got to change that.
If Brendan's the only one wanting to bring about hope, but it relies on all the conference guys who already sound
and he's
negative.
determined to have consensus. Like his big thing is consensus.
Yes.
It just seems to me like nothing's changed.
No, we're stalemated.
I think things are.
I think wasn't it Nerily in our last interview said not only has it not changed, it's gone backwards. I think she said that.
I think,
and this is the thing. She said on the show. She said on the show that she's now left the church. Am I right?
Yes, I saw that.
What an incredible loss.
True.
I've left the church. She's left the church. We're getting to the point like it's watching goldfish. We're observing it and chatting about it. It's like you guys just don't want to change.
Well, even though I'm discouraged, I'm not giving up, Peter.
See, I hope I'm old enough and can do this for another 20 years, so I can keep saying to people, sorry, it hasn't changed, and just have a slight smug look on my face.
That is not very attractive of you.
And I also hope that I can continue cajoling people, because it's the cajoling that actually does work. It's the cajoling. I've tried everything. I didn't leave till I was 54, leave the church. And I didn't start trying cajoling till then.
Oh,
That's
really?
when I've noticed some kind of...
That was your first cajoling?
Yeah, I didn't cajole. Cajoling, yeah. Before that, I was just highlighting. But now I'm calling people out, saying, "Oh, you're telling me this," and that 10 years just went by. Renee's about to turn 13. Nothing's happening. Where is the leadership on your side? Where's the leadership of the progressives making change? Where? Who? We just listed a bunch of leaders that are doing nothing. Where's the leaders that are doing something? Where are they? Who are they? People like you and Peter Mashenko need to ferret them out, have little chats.
I still think things are different this time. Exactly, just that phrase.
How are they different again?
I think the difference.
How are they different?
There's no real difference, or maybe
no difference if you just
getting
only 1 of
up
10.
here.
Paul, I will concede.
No,
I will concede this. I think now is an opportunity.
Yes,
it's not different. It's just an opportunity.
Now is true.
A time. To do what, like to start gathering a group of people together who can implement a campaign. That's my opinion. So.
It's crucial because I believe something. Look, if there's not a constituency meeting in 2027, they're going to be hell to pay. They really will. The expectations have been raised.
People said that to me about this
I know.
Yes.
Like Glenn Townend had put such a spotlight on this. People were raving about it for weeks and weeks to me. This is the one.
Peter.
Oh, no, didn't happen. 27 is going to be the one. But you started off saying, Paul, that there's nothing guaranteed for 27. I want to say right now, to predict, and I joke when I say smug. I'm really sad about it, actually.
So I couldn't hear that.
I would have
Wrong with
loved
the
to be.
sound.
I'm not being smug. I joke about that.
Oh, great.
But
No,
I
thank-
will say this: the 20.
Yeah, I can now.
Can you hear
Thanks,
me,
yeah.
Deb? Oh, good. I'm joking when I say I'm smug. I am sad about it, but I will be right. 27 will come and go, and if I'm still alive and doing the show, I'll highlight to people, and they will say to me, "Yeah, it's different now. You wait,
Oh, the next one
mate,
in
3 more years.
3 more years.
The next one, there's a new guy on the block, and so the new guy, Brendan, is on the block, and then you say, oh, but he can't really have any power anyway because all the conference guys,
That's why it's crucial now.
and they don't want it. They don't want it anyway.
Yeah,
There are a lot
it's
of
definitely
reasons
crucial
why.
time now.
So when can I say you guys have failed? When can I say it? Give me a time period, and I'll interview in that number of years.
I think there are a lot of well, there's one main reason that it probably won't happen in 2027, and that is because they will be so preoccupied with Australia for Christ, which is a massive mission campaign that they're running here in Australia,
which kicks
No,
off
kicks off in 28.
That's why
In
it's 27.
Well, I've heard Erton Kohler say
Yeah, that's why they're
27.
saying 20, because they don't want to, during a big emphasis on evagelism, having a constituency meeting in 28. That will distract. So, 27 was definitely the date that they had in mind.
But that's also the date that Erton Kohler has been talking about with his big unification.
No, nothing to do with Erton Kohler. It was just local issues.
No, but I'm saying that Erton Kohler has got a big push in 2027 for unity, and he's just announced it. It's the new
unity
next big, total member involved.
Oh, it's been around for a while.
Yeah.
No. This is a new one that he's just kicked off last week. This is the new thing, and it's starting in 2027. And so I'm saying anything you have in 2027 is going to be overshadowed by powerful leadership that does not want women's ordination. If their hands are tied now, they're going to be chained by 2027.
Their hands have never been tied. Everything's a choice that they've done. Simple as that. That's so disempowering.
Whatever reason they've not acted,
it's a choice.
Whatever reason, the weight of that upon that choice is going to be stronger.
So, Peter, I think that's why
it doesn't have much influence on what their programs and have very little influence in this union. So,
what I see is that we need to start looking at why this is happening. We need to look at some of the messages that continually and repeatedly come out, and the strategies and tactics that repeatedly and continually come out, which is why I would ask.
Yeah, you touched on that in the article.
Yeah, which is why I would probably ask if anyone feels that what Paul and I have written, when it does eventually come out, is worth sharing, to please share it, because it's something that as a church we need to be looking at and acknowledging. And even if our leaders aren't willing to acknowledge it, perhaps we can hold them more to account when we start naming some of these things that are happening. When you agree, like, this is what you're doing. You may not realize it. This is what you're doing. And do you know how many times it has happened in the years? Yeah.
Good point.
I'm going to put it out to 9,000 people's faces at least.
Thank you.
So I'll help promote your articles. Now, let's just read a couple of comments from Facebook. They've been firing away over there, but I've just not been able to access them today. But people have sent me some messages where they've screenshot. So this is Peter Veach. He says, sad and funny that bravery is required to do the right thing. My question is, why is bravery a requirement? My answer would be because inappropriate threat on consequences from cruel and wrong people. Now, Lisa
I don't really
Pratt,
like the label brave, in all honesty. Change it on the thumbnail. You should be brave to do.
Well, I do think it requires bravery.
Dare to be a Daniel?
Because it's the presidents that need bravery, not me.
Leaders.
Yes,
they do too. I've not called you the only brave person. if they spoke up, I would call them
Yeah,
brave.
leaders, absolutely.
If the person,
They're the ones.
if the person I
Their
spoke to
influence.
last week, the person who I spoke to last week at SPD level with his hands tied, couldn't come on the show because he'd lose his job. If he came on the show, I'd call him brave.
Yeah.
I think brave's a perfect
But look, this
word.
losing the job.
Yeah,
Look, I'm sorry, that's an excuse.
I hear that. I've had that
Nobody's
so many times.
yeah.
I'm amazed that you're just becoming aware of it.
No.
It's the go-to
Exactly.
excuse.
It's a go-to excuse. No one's going to lose their job for going on a show.
What about Christopher
writing-
Mindanao, who said a few little
sorry?
things? 36 years old,
Who's that?
gone. A guy in the States, Christopher Mindanao, young pastor, asked a few questions, criticised a few
Yeah.
things, said it publicly,
Oh,
lost his job.
he was publishing.
People lose their job.
No.
We were around during
He
the 80s.
challenged a fundamental belief. That's what, so. But this is not. This issue is not a fundamental belief. This is an issue that is, still in play. So it's quite different to a fundamental belief publicly questioning, compared to women's ordination or whatever, which is something in play.
Like these people that say it to me aren't lying. Like why are they saying it? If
people did lose their jobs many times throughout history for publicly or at least being vocal about disagreeing in some way or other. That has happened so many times. Reputational damage has also been a huge part of that tactic. Sorry, Paul, but maybe you don't know as much history as I do, or you haven't read as much, but that has happened so many times over history.
Yeah, but also plenty haven't been.
I like that you don't realise. I like that you don't realise how brave you are. Same with Lloyd.
Because of my experience with the president, who I could disagree with on the executive, sometimes pretty strongly. I say not always, but I never felt any pressure that I had to censor myself or that there'd be consequences for going against the president. Never got that. He was a good bloke, good president, and good chair of the executive. So that's why I'm not nervous, completely comfortable with saying my piece, because I've said it before, and I kept my job.
You did say at the start, I've got to be careful.
Yeah, because I can say things in a hurtful manner. Okay, and I have done that in the past. So sometimes I get a bit too passionate. So not because I'm afraid of losing my job. No.
Right, I'm glad you clarified that. And look, you've been nothing but reasonable and civil. I think you both have got, and Peter Mashenko, incredible opportunity to do some coordinating, and you guys already have with your articles. I think it's fantastic. And earlier there was lots of really great comments to you, Paul, saying thank you, good on you, keep it up, etc.
What did Lisa say, Peter? I'm really interested because
I'm just about to read it. Yeah. So Lisa Pratt, who Brendan's brother Darren, who lives, I could literally go throw, if there was a window here, it would land in their yard. They live next door and they have fantastic neighbours. Lisa and I don't agree on some stuff, I think. But that's good. We're still loving neighbours. So I haven't read what she said, but I'll read it now. Peter, part of the issue came down to training. At least one conference were using the issue of ordination to be able to employ pastors without adequate training. They actually really didn't want women's ordination. They just wanted to employ and ordain those of a similar ilk.
Debbie's theory.
That is conservative. That is conservative controlling of women, headship theology, poor theological knowledge, and without a solid ability to provide good governance and management in a local church, including legal areas such as safe places and WWCC compliance. I know I'm married to a Pratt, and you'll say I'm biased, but I'm firmly pro-women's ordination and believe what came out of the session was the best that could happen at this point in time. If you want to go after anyone, go after the individuals who are employing those with a narrow, punitive and works-based theology. So I just want to say, Lisa, if you're still watching, I'm not going after anybody. No. I'm challenging Paul, Debbie, you. I'm challenging anyone. I'm not attacking. I'm not going after. but I am passionately challenging. Come on the show, Lisa. I'd love to.
And as I say, I'll say it again. I didn't know it was a relative. Darren was handed I've got a vernacular saying, but I can't say. A certain type of sandwich he was handed. And, he had to do what he thought was best. I disagree with him. I still respect him.
Brendan,
Brendan,
you mean, not Darren.
He had no power beforehand. He knew that this was not going to end well. And he did what he thought was best. I disagree with him. I wish he did something different. And of course, we'll never know, because we can never compare. Okay, if he'd done this, this would have happened. Well, we don't know. But he did. He took the safe course. By putting that motion. As I say, I disagreed with him. He knew that. And hopefully still good relations with him. So they haven't had any indication otherwise.
My belief is that he's very idealistic, and that who wouldn't want consensus and who wouldn't want unity? All of those things are really worthy. But I don't think that they serve in the long run. They mean that we're paralysed and that we never end up doing anything. That's really what happens as a result by buying in, because it's a unity fallacy in many ways. You simply cannot make bold decisions when you institutionalize unity, and that's what the Adventist Church has done. It has to be. That's number one. In my opinion.
Yeah, but
institutionalized.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
unity will be united.
I know, I love it.
The compliance committee will come after you.
True. It's so true. Yeah. I love it.
Okay, sure.
We don't have unity. We have enforced conformity, which is totally opposite of unity.
Exactly. Yeah.
At the worldwide level, I mean, on this issue.
The thing is, these are conversations, and they're difficult, and they're decisions that are difficult to make and often have to be made at a administrative level. Anyway, it does take courage.
Nellie Smith writes, I've come in a little late, but the church is missing out by not having women's ordination. It's limited thinking. It's very true. I'm going to get to what Peter Mashenko said, then get you both to wrap up your thoughts. Motor Sapien is just, Peter speaking out against punitive theology. Dost my ears deceive me? They do, Motor Sapien. I'm not speaking out about the theology, as I said at the start. You decide what you want for the theology. I don't care. I'm talking about the people that speak publicly one thing and privately another. And tell you behind the scenes that things are changing and nothing changes. And I'm also speaking a little bit to those who believe them, who believe, I think it's going to change, who then do nothing about it. Okay, Peter has just sent me 4 little messages. Paul's mention of a union just gave me an idea. Perhaps our church employees at all levels need a union to help ensure that they're able to speak to what the Spirit is impressing them without fear of employment retribution from above.
Well, that's why we've got ministerial secretaries. They're not part of administration, so they're sort of our union rep. We do have that within the church.
Yeah. He adds, choose ye this day whom ye will serve, the justice of the Lord or institutional obedience, I think. And he also adds, why did Terry Johnson not take the issue seriously? More seriously, in my chat with Terry, which I enjoyed, and we chatted for 2.5 hours, and he's a great human. I got the impression that he was very supportive of women's ordination, and in his way was trying to move things forward in that regard. And one last comment from Peter. It's funny, the 2 conferences that withdrew the motion ended up getting the lion's share of the 2 days to talk about their preferred
Exactly.
way
That's
forward,
it.
at the expense of discussion of the way forward of the two that wanted the
Mhm, that's it.
discussion
It's true.
agenda.
Good observation.
Yeah, that's
Good observation.
yeah.
And that's why it's crucial. This is a crucial time of what will happen in 2027. Whether we get just a simple motion, an enabling motion that puts it back at the conferences to go at their own pace. See, at the moment, I've got a feeling, and it could be wrong, that they might rue the day that they blocked anything happening, because now it's lingering on. Now all the pressure's on for 2027. If they'd had just a vote on women's ordination, the conferences decide, it would have all happened at the conferences, and they could shape the debate any way they liked. They could ignore it. They could do whatever they like then. No pressure. Whereas now, they're all under pressure because 2027 is coming, and there's some sort of expectation that they're going to do something. Question is, what are they going to do? And that's why we've got to make our voices heard clearly. We just want a straight women's ordination vote like they've done in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Don't reinvent the wheel. Just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
I keep saying we don't want to block it for those that are ready. Act on it.
Yeah, so, like we said, what a brilliant idea that Ellen White proposed. I see that as her greatest contribution to the Adventist Church, her idea of structure.
Do you know what the irony is, Peter? The Australian Union Conference was the first one in the world. We were the first union, and we're the ones who are not exercising the power.
Paralyzed.
That we have. Yeah, paralyzed. That's a good word, Debbie.
It did surprise me a lot.
Really. The first union, and they were set up specifically as a counterbalance to GC power. And yet, because the GC is against it, that's being used as an excuse by some not to do anything. The ironies, honestly, people had a sense of irony. It would just be
that is not lost on me.
Australia, the first one to counterbalance the central and kingly powers that Ellen White denounced, and now we're bowing down to them. What an irony! What an irony!
And and Brendan Pratt's family have the very desk that she wrote on. In her little house down the road from me. And so she was writing letters there. Right, you guys, I'm setting up a union down here. And anyway, so I'm going to let Paul just close some of his thoughts, and then Deb, if you could just wrap the whole thing up for us and tell us where
my
we've gone.
closing thought is: don't give up. Make your voice heard. This is a crucial time. It really is. We've got a leader who's publicly committed to advancing whatever. Okay, now if we want to shape the whatever, we've got to make our voices heard. In a polite way, and just talk to these conference presidents, and the union presidents. It is a crucial time. I'm sorry, Peter, to cut against your cynicism, but it is crucial.
I'm not cynical. I'm skeptical.
Skepticism. That's all I got to say.
It's a tried and tested skepticism based on years of observation and seeing and hearing the exact same things, and just being surprised at it's like, okay, here we go again. And I don't know what it takes for people to eventually go, oh, hang on, he wasn't being skeptical. That was very,
prescient.
erudite response. Prescient. He had prescient.
Self-serving comment.
And that's nothing to do with. It's nothing. I'm even just observing myself. I'm not saying I have a gift. I'm just saying here's a person, and he has observed this.
Yeah.
And he has commented that he has observed that, and no one listens.
Like a normal prophet, Peter. That's just what happens with prophets.
Guys, there's a
modern Cassandra.
With no claims to make. just
Anyway, it's
observations.
still crucial.
But I admire that with you, Paul, and I admire that you're doing a great work at that grassroots church level, and I cannot wait to see what you and Peter Mashenko and Debbie Hooper come up with next. I'm going to be watching with bated breath. And what do you think you guys can call yourselves?
Three Musketeers.
Three wise monkeys. Anyway, look, there are others. Before the constituency meeting, there was a group that I was part of. So it's not just the three of us.
I feel like you're going to coordinate. I feel like you're going to coordinate those others, though.
Yeah,
I think someone's got to coordinate them. So before I let Debbie close, I want to put out an invite to Brendan, to Lisa, to the women that contacted me that are currently commissioned and pastors in the Adventist Church to come on the show and have a civil conversation about it. I won't attack you. I won't cajole. I won't even cajole you. I'll be lighter on you than I have been with these guys. Just come on the show, share your thoughts. And Debbie, share some closing thoughts and summarize.
You've put a heavy burden on me, Peter, but Paul, thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for reaching out to me that time and providing your insights.
I wouldn't have done anything. I'd committed not to say anything. But then when I saw your article in Christian, I wrote to the conference and said, I'm not bound anymore. If one side can give their side, I want to give mine. So it wasn't you really the one who started it. If you hadn't written that article, I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't even know who I was. Nobody would know.
But I was wrong in some ways.
Serendipity.
Well, you acted on you knew on the information you received. So,
but I guess what I'm trying to say is this was limited information, and it was only by speaking up that you reached out to me.
Yeah, that's right.
And you added more information. We got more of the story. We were able to then present our ideas. So I really appreciate what you have to say. And yes, I don't want to stay silent. But ideas always come at me from different directions, and my mind works where I start to connect things. Like I tend to so when I found out today was going to be Great Disappointment Day, and that our article potentially may be published tomorrow on Great Disappointment Day in the United States, it really kind of just hit me and made me think about how we have these patterns of delay, denial and disappointment over and over again, and hope is always defeated. It's constantly and consistently defeated by those patterns of delay, denial, disappointment. And it's only when we can actually point out those mechanisms that are going on, I believe, that actually go on and that are repeated and that people unconsciously repeat, because I don't have anything against those people, but they're unconsciously repeating the same patterns. That we will start
your article. What you
that
put in your article,
we need.
Didn't think of it that way.
We're becoming more literate. Let's say more literate about how these things happen and how organisations can perpetuate cycles of the ineffectiveness. And I believe that is what the Adventist Church has done, and Great Disappointment happened again. And is that going to be the Adventist story? It's, like the original people who had the Great Disappointment, they came out of that and they were able to go, let's have a renewed purpose. That was not the truth. This is the truth. They had messages that came out of that first Great Disappointment that enabled them to move on and build this incredible church to what it is today. However, are we going to, and here's your favorite word again, Peter, institutionalize disappointment? Because that's effectively I think, what has occurred when we don't, when we're not brave enough to actually say this decision has to be made, and we're just going to keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, actually, if I just say something, hopefully, Debbie, what you wrote in the article about this cycle might also awaken some of the leaders who are not aware that what
I
is
don't think
about
they're
this
aware.
cycle as well. They might, might not realise themselves that this cycle we've got ourselves into. So yeah.
I can provide the receipts for that too. Like in our article, we did mention a couple of other issues that took forever to be resolved, like equal pay for women, etc. With Mary Kay McLeod having to take the church to court. However, to church. However, I can show where I could write a list, and I almost did that just before we came on, but I didn't have time, of all the times those words were used. Now is not that time. You know, we need unity. All of those exact words and themes that have repeated themselves through our history, and what they become is simply just like a doorway to doing nothing.
Yeah, the default.
Yeah.
Can I share just one fun fact before we go? I was listening to, I've heard it before, as a podcast, How the Church Works. Quite interesting, actually. Anyway, when Ellen White died in 1915 or 1916, we had about 100 women in leadership at the time. And after that, it coincided with the fundamentalist movement. And the Adventists, being Adventists, said, we'll be the fundamentalists of the fundamentalists. By 1940, it went from 100 to 0 women in leadership. We have a rich history of women in leadership. No? If Ellen White was alive today now, I don't like saying that because it's a bit presumptuous, but she would be horrified, honestly, because when she died, there was 100 women in leadership. What would she say now are the things that are happening now? So that's the challenge. Let's get it right. That's my appeal to the leaders. Let's just do the right thing.
Yes, please.
Just do the right thing, please.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Jude writes, thank you, Paul. You got the guts and tenacity, and to you too, Debbie.
Thank you.
Nellie writes, back 33 years ago, nearly gone altogether, I was good friends with Lyndon Kent, Grenville's dad, and he said the church is missing out, meaning by not having women ordained, I'm guessing. He was a beautiful Christian man. My son and I loved him. He was Christ-like. Interesting, Grenville Kent will be on the show tomorrow. If my voice holds up. If he doesn't, I'll replay a S4 season, and he'll be on next week. And
that'll be interesting.
Your voice did pretty well today, Peter.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different
home remedy.
Got lemon sip. I've got salt water. I've got honey. I've got water,
lemon and honey,
and a coffee in there somewhere.
Olive oil.
Listening ear adds, who ordained Ellen G. White? There were 3 documents with her name on as being ordained, and that's a whole other topic. But she was ordained by her local conference, I guess.
Yeah, look, we can briefly answer that. She was never ordained, but she was given a license that she was an ordained minister. So, but there's no record that she actually was ordained. But she was given ordination credentials. So that's what the Ellen White, I think the estate came up with.
Did they do laying on of hands of her?
I don't know. I don't think so. Because she was a prophet. No, you don't lay hands on a prophet.
She was above.
Lays hands on you. So I doubt it very much that they would have, because she was called by prophets. They're outside the system, speaking in. But yeah, she was given these honorary ordination credentials. So that's the answer to that.
Okay, so thank you everyone also for your support this last week. We've had $50 or $60 come in. I try and be transparent about that. It's not a money-making machine, but it just helps keep the lights on. And I really appreciate a few dollars just goes a long way. At the moment, if you're in Australia, you can make donations into my bank account. Just ask me and I'll let you know. Or PayPal seems to be the most common. Helps me continue to put out content like this and have incredible people like Debbie Hooper and Paul Katanko on the show. And all cajoling, smugness, and skepticism aside, I really, really value what you guys are doing. And I really hope that you're right and that things move in a direction that will encourage women to feel that they do have a home within the Seventh-day Adventist Church, that they aren't secondary, they aren't lesser than. And as Paul said, that's really just got to happen now. You know, the time is now. If not you, who? If not when? If not now, when?
Exactly.
So we'll look forward to seeing you guys again. And Paul, hopefully before 2027, but lock in after the next union meetings, and we'll
probably won't
see
be
how
invited to be a delegate at the next one.
Yeah, you've
heard all the breaches.
It's lucky you're near retirement. And good luck with you guys and whoever else you pull together to create something that actually follows through and has strategies at play. Till tomorrow, everybody. I'll be here, and there'll be something.
Okay.
See you
Catch
soon.
you, Peter. Catch you, Debbie.
Bye.
See you.
See ya.